perspective, quoting relative risk as opposed to absolute risk in the 9% reduction that masks were said to provide. But I wanted to, further expand on that a little bit and kind of, I think that, the reason that the mask mandate was suspended because the CDC supposedly provided some false information and didn't jibe with what the local health officers were saying existed or whatnot. But I think the real elephant in the room for me is the fact that there's no evidence that masks make any difference anyway. There's no studies that confirm that masks reduce any sort of transmission. There is a study from the CDC and
Thank you for your comments. We are out of time, but you're always welcome to contact the Board of Supervisors for any additional comments. Our email address is cob@co.monterey.ca.us. And I'm happy to consider action on this consent item for our joint.
Move approval.
Thank you. Do we have a second? I'll second that. We'll take a roll call vote. Thank you.
Supervisor Alejo?
Aye.
Supervisor Phillips?
Aye.
Supervisor Lopez? Supervisor Adams?
Aye.
And Chair Supervisor Root Askew.
Aye. Motion carries. We will adjourn the joint meeting of certain Board of Supervisors standing committees, and we will call to order the Monterey County Board of Supervisors with a roll call from the clerk, please.
Good afternoon. Let the record reflect all supervisors are present, with Supervisors Alejo and Askew appearing in person and Supervisors Lopez, Phillips, and Adams appearing via video conference.
Thank you. Once again, we are on Zoom webinar ID number 224-397-747. Anyone who's watching us live on Facebook or YouTube is welcome to hop on over and join us on Zoom as well. Are there any additions or corrections to our agenda today?
There are no additions and corrections.
All right. We are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I wanted to put our Hartnell women's soccer team on the spot to see if you would be willing to stand and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance today.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So you come to our meetings and we're like, welcome, you belong here, and we're going to have you lead us in the pledge. All right. We do have two ceremonial resolutions today, really very significant and important. I'm going to pass the microphone over to my colleague, Supervisor Alejo, to make some comments and to present a resolution declaring December 14th, 2021 as Hartnell Women's Soccer Team State Championship Day in Monterey County. Yeah.
Want to invite all the coaches and the team to come up and stand up here in front of everybody, please. This is being recorded at home on community TV. Thank you. Thank you, all of you guys, for coming. Director, thank you for being here as well, Dan. Everyone, we are here for a special occasion to recognize the Hartnell women's soccer team for winning their first state championships in history. Give them a big round of applause for that. And we know that this team, I'm going to read the resolution that we drafted for them, but this team has worked so hard, and it's important that in moments like this is not only to recognize their hard work, the great team, the director, the coaches, but also the community that's behind them, their parents and their families that have supported them throughout all their education and through all their athletics. They're supported by their families. And it's moments like this that we have to highlight your work, because we hope that it will be an inspiration for other girl and women athletes, but for the community at large, to show that if you work hard and you're focused and you work as a team, you could accomplish every goal that you set in front of you. So this resolution is to declare today, December 14th, as Hartnell Women's Soccer Team State Championship Day in Monterey County. On December 5th, 2021, the Hartnell Women's Soccer Team, the Hartnell Panthers of Hartnell College in Salinas, captured the California Community College Athletic Association, the CCCAA State Championship, for the first time in the program's history. Along the way, This group of women won the Coast Conference title, the second time in their program's history, and broke several program records. The team recorded 22 wins, 2 losses, and 2 ties throughout the course of the year, with a winning percentage of .885. A total of 16 shutouts were recorded. The Hartnell women's soccer team ended the season with a 24-game non-losing streak, which is the longest streak for a Division III junior college in the country. So congratulations on that accomplishment. Wow. And it says that these were all breaking records in their program history. The Hartnell women's soccer team performed and dominated at the highest level with 100% local student athletes representing local communities. Its athletes represent Salinas, Soledad, Gilroy, Hollister, Castroville, Greenfield, Gonzales, Santa Cruz, Watsonville, and Seaside. So this is truly a regional team. And we want to mention all your communities to let the community know all these cities should be celebrating this victory. All members of the team are full-time students at Hartnell, with many of them holding part or full-time jobs. Many of them are also part of the Salinas Valley Promise that this board is proud to support there. And the Hartnell women's soccer team is coached by Ivan Guerrero, who is on his 11th year, and also assisted by Hugo Gonzalez and Miguel Gutierrez. The success, hard work, and team spirit and accomplishments of the Hartnell women's soccer team serves as an inspiration for all Salinas and Monterey County residents, but especially for women and girl athletes in our local communities. So therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors on behalf of our county and all our residents thereof, proclaim December 14th as Hartnell Women's Soccer Team State Championship Day in Monterey County, and call upon all our residents to celebrate and honor the success, hard work, team spirit, and accomplishments of the Hartnell Women's Soccer Team in their first ever state championship title. So congratulations to all of you, And we want to hear some words from the coach. Pass it to the coaches.
Yeah,
Yes.
Uh-oh, I was gonna take your paper already.
We're gonna, let me present the reso
Okay.
here right behind you. So on behalf of all our Board of Supervisors, Supervisor Wendy Rudasco, Chair, Supervisor Chris Lopez, who is here, and also Supervisor Phillips and Mary Adams are on with us on Zoom. So we want to present this proclamation honoring you and your team very much. Congratulations.
No, first of all, thank you for inviting us. Thank you for recognizing these young ladies on the recent accomplishment. But it's something we're very proud of. You mentioned it's 100% local student athletes, and it's something that we want everybody to acknowledge, because there's very talented group of athletes, not just on the field, but just academically as people, and they're good citizens within our community. And this is just a small little part in their history. And they have a lot to accomplish, and I'm just glad to be a part of and to be part of this group. But none of this is possible with the support from our athletic director, Dan Teresa, our coaches, and the rest of the staff that is not here. And there's a lot. We have 32 girls on the team. There's finals weeks for them, so a lot of them are during finals or studying for finals. But no, thank you on behalf of the entire team, I think, and I just really appreciate it. And I just want to make sure that they get this spotlight, because I believe it's the only women's program, right, in the county to ever achieve this as a team at the team level. So I think that they're going to be remembered forever, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. Yeah, thank you, and thank you for inviting us.
Of course.
Thank you for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Anyone else in the team want to say a few words? Anybody? Come on.
We'll pass it over to
Yeah.
our athletic
Okay,
director. I think.
all right, athletic director.
No, it's unprecedented. I don't think people realize what they accomplished. The ladies will realize that in the future here, but Ivan was hired here 11 years ago, Ivan, and we barely could field a full team 11 years ago. And we just had a couple more ladies come on in. And 11 years ago, we knew Ivan was the right person for the job. He was local. He played Hartnell soccer for Alex Golomik. And to see what they did from when they started, and Ivan said, he told me, he goes, this is a special group at the beginning of the year. I remember him telling me that. And it sure was. And not only were they great soccer players, but just great people. That's what I think we're more proud of, the men and women soccer team this year. The men came in second, and they were about a minute away from going overtime and hopefully winning that. Just great people. So the coaches just have done an excellent job of just developing good people. And they know how important academics are, but they just develop good people. And so they've created a culture where a lot of parents want to come into these programs because these coaches it's just not about soccer. It's about academics and just and developing good people and going out and in the community and helping the community. So I'm just so proud of these ladies and had a lot of fun with them going to the Final Four, and they got to cheer on the men when they were playing. The men cheered on the women. So it was really special to have both teams go in the Final Four. It just doesn't happen. Mount San Antonio College, who the ladies beat, have 35,000 students. We have 7,000. Wow. So it's pretty much like David against Goliath. And it's very difficult to win a state champ, the small schools to win a state championship. So it's just unprecedented. So I'm so proud of them and what they've done and the coaches, and couldn't say enough good words about them. And thank you very much for having us. They deserve this. They've earned this, and we're all proud of them. And just thank you very much.
Just a brief comment. I played soccer in high school. Actually, when I started in high school, they didn't have a girls team. And so by my junior year, we started a girls team. And then my sister played on that team. And it's the leadership qualities that you gain from playing sports, from playing on a winning team, on a team that has that kind of working together, where you back each other, where you guys are communicating without communicating. It's that kind of skill set and leadership that's going to allow you to do amazing things in life. And I just want to say, we're so proud of you. If you ever need anything, you come back here, you come join us up here. We're thrilled at how you're representing Salinas and the whole Monterey County. Just incredibly proud. Thank you for your hard work, and excited to see where you go from here.
Congratulations, ladies. I concur completely with what my colleagues have said, but I'm going to leave you with some different words. It's a charge. You guys are now charged with turning around and helping somebody else. You guys have made it to this incredible peak, and you will forever be remembered as state champions. But remember, this community supported you to get there. So make sure you turn around and help one more student reach that point, whether it's in their academics, getting into the four-year college they want. You now are a champion in our community, and we'll always see you as that. Make sure you give that little bit back, because that's how the community gets better. So thank you guys for being incredible role models for everybody coming behind you. You've set the bar incredibly high, and we are so proud of you as a community. Congratulations.
We want to take a photo so we could try to squeeze in to get everybody in. Linda, if you could get in the middle, so take the photo so we could put it on our county social media. And this is the first team to ever get a day in their honor in Monterey County. So you guys got that honor here, yeah. All kind of fit. We might have to step back a little bit more, Linda, on behind another row. Okay. Or thumbs up. Number one. Go Panthers! Yeah, yeah.
Supervisor, could I make a quick comment?
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Coach, thank you, brother. Hey, proud of you guys, man. That's good, awesome, man. Get better too, you
I think Adam's not still. Oh, hey, can you come in?
Mary, you want to jump in? Before everyone
Yeah.
goes, we've got a few more comments, y'all. We've got a few more comments on the screen.
I think they're gone and they just want to go celebrate. And
Yes, we're still here.
So I just wanted to say something primarily personally to these women. And that is this, that you have learned and understood something so incredibly important, that you can rely on one another. You understand the meaning of team now, and you understand the meaning of relationships. You know that you can trust someone to have your back. And that's what you have succeeded in doing to the maximum. You got to the top. It's amazing. But I think what this can also do for you is help you in relationships throughout the rest of your life, whether with a spouse, a partner, a child, a parent, a teacher, a boss, that you know you can trust a team. And I hope that you'll be able to carry that with you forever. I really am so proud of you. And it's an honor to be able to just have a second to talk to all of you. Thank you again for all of your efforts. You made it to the top. That's wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you. All right. Did we take a motion on our ceremonial resolutions? We have not yet. Okay, so let's take action on our ceremonial resolutions. We have two items. One was presented just now. The second is a resolution honoring labor leader Sergio Rangel of Unite Here, Local 483, for his lifetime of service and his retirement. We won't be presenting that here tonight. That'll be presented on Friday, but I'm happy to entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Alejo, a second from Adams. Is there any public comment on our ceremonial resolutions this afternoon, today? Seeing no hands raised, we will take a roll call vote.
Supervisor Alejo?
Aye.
Supervisor Phillips?
Aye.
Supervisor Lopez?
Aye.
Supervisor Adams?
Aye.
And Chair Supervisor Root Askew.
Fabulous, aye. Motion carries. We're going to take item number 7 out of order today. Let's do our appointments first, and then we'll take item number 7 out of order. So item number 3 and 4 are our appointments. We have 2 appointments on our consent appointments calendar today. Is there any public comment on our appointments calendar this afternoon? My apologies. Seeing no public comment, we have a motion from Alejo, a second from Lopez. We'll take a roll call vote.
Supervisor Alejo?
Aye.
Supervisor Phillips?
Aye.
Supervisor Lopez?
Aye.
Supervisor Adams?
Aye.
And Chair Supervisor Root Askew.
Aye. Motion carries, and thank you to all of our volunteers who volunteer on our county commissions. With that, we're going to take item number 7 out of order today, and I'm going to pass the microphone over to CAO Charles McKee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This number 7 is CAO comments and referrals. And first, for some comments, I just want to thank everybody in Monterey County, all our staff, our employees, the citizens, the residents, all the people in Monterey County for stepping up this year. 2021 was certainly a challenging year, but it came in with the hope of a vaccine and the hopes of the vaccine being utilized against COVID-19, and we saw some tremendous efforts here in Monterey County. The efforts by Clínica de Salud and Supervisors Alejo and Lopez and the Growers Ship Association and Farm Bureau to vaccinate all our farm workers. We have one of the highest rates of vaccination rates of anywhere in the country, especially with our farm worker community, which we asked to be on the front lines the whole time. And so that was obviously important. The tremendous efforts by obviously Natividad and our health department, the health department staff putting on clinic after clinic after clinic and partnering with others in our community. Our partner hospitals, CHOMP and SVMH and Me Memorial, and the work that they did throughout our community, as well as the pharmacies and other clinics. They all stepped up to make sure that the vaccine was available and that we got as many people inoculated as possible. We know there's still some work to do to keep people safe and to get people vaccinated. We just really appreciate everything that everybody does. In addition, our businesses in Monterey County and our workers in Monterey County, they endured a lot in 2021. And for those businesses that weren't able to make it and those who are suffering, and if you have the ability this holiday season to give back, now's the time to really step up and do that, to help those who are less fortunate. It is obviously something that is endemic to the holiday spirit, which is helping others. And now's the perfect time to do that, to recognize those who are less fortunate than you. Now would be to show them what you can do and to show them that if you're more fortunate that you can help others, now would be the time to do it. And so I just want to thank everybody for a great year. I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year coming up. So thank you all for everything you do for Monterey County. And with that, I'm going to move to the first referral, which is submitted by Supervisor Wendy Rudascu to direct the Monterey County Health Department to continue partnering and do more with the K through 12 school system to increase the vaccination among our pediatric residents ages 5 to 11 years old, especially in the disproportionately impacted communities. We know it's a significant issue to get the vaccine into the younger arms that we have in our community, and to look out for those opportunities to make sure that those in the disadvantaged communities and disproportionately impacted communities are right up there at the top in getting access. We don't want to leave anybody behind. And so I'm hopeful that the health department can continue partnering with our schools, our Dr. Deneen Gus and the superintendent, as well as the individual school districts here in Monterey County. So happy to have the health department do that. And our second referral today is submitted by Supervisor Luis Alejo, which is to request a report back on how we can reorganize and consolidate the Housing Authority of Monterey County and its subsidiary, the Housing Development Corporation, under one executive director, and potentially have the Monterey County Board of Supervisors serve as its new governing board to oversee its operations and implement needed reforms. I know that there's a lot of concern out there for the work of the Housing Authority and the Housing Development Corporation, recognizing it's a key piece to how we address those who are less fortunate and need housing in our community. And I think this referral will help us open up a dialogue as far as what is the best course of action to help find solutions for the Housing Authority and the Housing Development Corporation. We understand that there has been significant leadership turnover at the Housing Authority, and that doesn't help with finding solutions. They obviously had some challenges dealing with COVID themselves, and the unfortunate passing of their executive director. So what I would hope with this referral is that we get some reports back to the board as far as solutions and how to help the Housing Authority. I would venture to surmise that Supervisor Alejo's purpose here is to not necessarily dictate one course of action, but look at what could be the options for the future. I would also like to note that I understand this week the Housing Authority Board of Commissioners did have a meeting, and they have, I think, secured a contract, or at least a commitment, with their former Chief Financial Officer, Finance Officer, I don't know exact title, to maintain his relationship with the organization to provide some leadership in the finance area, the executive management area, and potentially the personnel area. And so that might help with some transition time period as we look for solutions. Hopefully it'll lessen some urgency that might be needed for the Housing Authority. In addition, I understand they may have, or they're out for recruitment for an executive director and for those other high-level management positions, executive management positions. And if the County of Monterey can assist in any way, I think we would be ready to step up to assist them in that process. And then finally, I understand they may have brought in a new law firm to advise them. I'm not positive about that last item, but I think they may have secured some new legal services to help them weather this current storm. And I know I said finally, but I'll do one last finally. Looking at some of their financial documents that have been put out recently, I would say that at least the cursory look at them, they look to be at least sound at this time. So I don't have any immediate concerns on their finances, but that doesn't mean that we've looked at it in depth. With that said, I would turn it back to the board to see if they have any comments or further direction on this referral. And if the referral stands as is, we would assign it first to Eric Lundquist over the Housing Community Development with assistance from my office as well as County Council, to bring back options for the board to consider in various ways that we might support the Housing Authority of the County of Monterey.
Great. Thank you so much, Charles. I do want to pass the microphone over to Supervisor Alejo for some comments, as this was your referral. I also want to recognize that we do have the chair and vice chair of the Housing Authority with us on the line. So I would like to give them a chance to comment on this before we close it out. So
that would be great, Madam Chair. And I'm glad they joined us to give some input here. And I just want to express what the intent was. There's obviously been concerns with the Housing Authority from the public community, from employees, going back to 2019 2016 when I filed my first request for an investigation to the civil grand jury. That same request was now supported by the full Board of Supervisors just a few weeks ago. But the intent is to recognize the importance the Housing Authority plays in addressing our housing crisis and our homelessness crisis in Monterey County. And like every organization, it could always review itself, self-reflect to see how it could be better serving the community. But this referral is trying to address the two most pressing issues. One is what is taking a look at whether having two separate entities, the Housing Development Corporation and the Housing Authority, is in the best interest of the community. The Housing Authority controls, I think, over 4,100 vouchers in our county. And also the Housing Development Corporation operates 1,770 units of housing. So these are significant for our local community. But when there's two separate executive directors, when they should really be under one, that is what we want to take a close look at. The second part is looking at the governance with the needed changes and the needed reforms. It's not only about these programs I mentioned, but it's also looking at the financials, also looking at the culture within the organization, how the professionalism within the office, the interaction between employees, as that's been an ongoing issue for several years now. So this is really taking a close look. And now with the tragic passing of our good friend, Jose Gomez, who was trying to address these very issues before his sudden passing, I think it's incumbent in his memory, as part of the work that he was doing, is to try to fulfill what he was aiming to do before he left us. So I hope that we could do that. It's intended to try to reshape this organization to best serve Monterey County residents and especially the most vulnerable, those who have the most pressing needs in our community. So that's the intent. But I hope that as they're engaging in searching for a new executive director, hopefully some of these issues could time well in terms of the reorganization, but also perhaps having the board engage with their board in choosing its next director, hopefully with the right vision to make these needed changes. And secondly, hopefully our CEO could give some message from the Board of Supervisors today about not making any changes that might be counter to what we're trying to achieve in this referral. I think we need an opportunity to have more discussions, but we'd hate to see their board or the organizations try to move or make changes in their bylaws that might be counter to what we're trying to achieve here. So I think we need, just in the interim, because I know this is our last meeting of the year, we're going into the holidays, and we certainly want to pick this up again in early January, but we need to have some communication there. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. I saw Supervisor Phillips, you had your hand raised briefly. Did you have, otherwise we'll.
Yeah, I did. And I share, I think everybody on our board shares the concern that we need to get some redirection and make sure that some things are accomplished. And I know we were talking about maybe the necessity of having an emergency session to deal with this. But I kind of get the feeling, Charles, that maybe what's occurred and appears to be occurring now doesn't mandate that, but what's your feeling?
Thank you, Supervisor Phillips. I think what I heard yesterday about the developments yesterday makes me feel a little calmer about what is occurring. And I think sending a message from this board and from me to say that we are looking at the operations and here to help and here to assist, and would request that while they move forward to try to fill some of those top positions, that no significant changes are made as far as their governance structure, as far as their relationships between the Housing Authority and the Housing Development Corporation. Wouldn't make any changes at this time. I think that would help ease some concerns here and allow us to provide any assistance that we can in a measured way, as opposed to trying to jump in real quickly and take urgent action. So I would surmise that I think we might have a little bit of time to look at this situation a little bit more in depth, as opposed to just jumping quickly into something.
All right, thank you.
All right, why don't we give, I want to just again welcome the chair and vice chair of the Housing Authority for Monterey County join us today and give you a chance to add any comments to what the referral is and what's being discussed and what kind of support you might need from the county as we figure out how our best steps moving forward. Mr. Wizard or Mr. Booter? You should be able to unmute yourself.
Really good.
Okay, very good.
Thank you,
Just
Hans.
Sorry. John, you're the chair. Go ahead.
Thanks very much. I'll just say I appreciate the supervisor's comments, and they're well heard. I don't think there's any daylight between what the board wishes to accomplish and what the housing authority knows must happen. And just to add a little bit of background to Mr. McKee's comments, last night we authorized a contract with the recently retired or recently moved on interim executive director, who is also our chief financial officer. We're in a contract back with her to provide coverage until longer term interim ED can be placed. And we are actually going to have a special meeting tonight of our ad hoc recruitment committee to meet with the recruiter who believes it's possible to hire that longer term interim through 6, 9, 12 months, depending on how long the full recruitment takes, that we might have that person on board as early as the end of next week, before the Christmas holiday. So we have several things in motion. And just as a point of clarification, we see bringing Ms. Sturgeon, the former interim executive, on as a bridge to get us until we can hire that person on, potentially next Friday or shortly thereafter. And we see that person being in place while we do a full executive director recruitment, which will be a nationwide search across housing authorities throughout this country. So we have a plan. We're moving quickly. The ad hoc committee has met maybe a dozen times in the last 3 weeks. This is truly a Herculean effort for our, public body of volunteer commissioners. And we deeply appreciate and truly do understand the gravity of the situation, and that the supervisors' concerns are valid and deserve to be addressed. So it's our intention to pursue a course of action that harmonizes the operations of the housing authority and ensures that we're operating most efficiently to, as Supervisor Alejo said, to serve some of the most vulnerable households within our community. And I'll just pass it quickly to Vice Chair Booter if he has any comments.
No, I think I would echo, your comments, John, just in terms of the fact that we, I think, appreciate being closest to this, some of the challenges that the organization faces. And it's been a litany of challenges over a series of 15 years, sort of a revolving door of executive directors. And that has caused some real challenges on the ground in terms of operational effectiveness, I think. I would just add two other things. One would be, I think that we're proceeding in sort of a slightly different manner this time. I mean, we reached out to probably 15 executive directors of other housing authorities, both regionally and around the country, and identified sort of the top 2 executive search firms in the industry that are focused specifically on housing authority executive search. So sort of a niche role, but we wanted to do it the right way, and we want to be able to find, do a national search, for the best talent, here for our county. So, as John mentioned, we are moving forward. I think we have a solid plan, and we hope to have somebody in place, by the end of next week. We've got several solid candidates already. And then the last thing I would say, just to sort of put it in the minds of the supervisors, is there is a direct interplay between any action you take or any sort of potential action that may be hovering out there, vis-a-vis the development arm, vis-a-vis the organization of the board, et cetera, in terms of how that plays out relative to our search for a permanent executive director. And so I would just want you to be aware of that. And we should probably be in relatively close coordination to make sure that we can get the best executive director that we can, and to make sure that sort of our story is straight and that we're coordinating. So I appreciate you making a few minutes to hear from us today.
Great. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, Supervisor Alejo, for the referral, and CEO McKee for tracking this issue. We did have an earlier request for some assessments from our county council and our HCD, Housing Community Development Department. So as we continue to collect additional information, I think that the shared concern for the urgency of ensuring the success and viability of our housing authority is seen and shared from where I sit here. The only other question that I have is there, and I'm going to ask this of our chair and vice chair for the Housing Authority, the need for this board to more urgently step in and take action before the end of the year versus waiting until January for a regularly scheduled discussion about this. Is there, if there's a need for this board to step in and host a special meeting next week, I think that we're prepared. I'm prepared to call that meeting if that would be beneficial. But would love any thoughts that you have for us.
And Madam Chair, as they're thinking about that, I heard from the vice chair in particular that it sounded like there might be some desire for some coordination with your board of supervisors on their recruitment. And so I know they have an ad hoc committee of their board of commissioners. There's limits on two ad hoc committees, how they meet together potentially, but there might be an opportunity there if the board of commissioners is open to some input from your board on that process.
And Madam Chair, I would add, because they are moving to for this search for an executive director, and I'm glad to hear all the interim steps for leadership to step in light that their HR director resigned, their CFO and interim director resigned. I think some other top leadership, but I think look at the recruitment of a new director. I think it's important to include in that conversation whether it's going to be director over only a partial of the programs, or if it's consolidated, there's more responsibility, right? So any potential recruit would need to know the range of their job description and the range of services that they're going to provide. So hopefully we could do this expeditiously so that consolidation, the merger between the two entities could perhaps happen. So that way the new person comes in, there's a clear mission, there's a clear set of responsibilities rather than the way they are now where they're divided among two people. So that needs to, I think, move quickly. So I support the concept if we need to hold a meeting next week, but if not early January, a special meeting just on this topic to talk about the breadth of issues that need to be addressed. And as stated earlier, Jose was already looking and doing the analysis about whether having the two entities was helping or hurting, and whether the two different executive directors were at odds in terms of certain programs. Those are all questions that the process already started months ago under Jose Gomez's leadership. But I hope that we could quickly get that issue perhaps resolved, because I think it would be best bringing in one leader to run both aspects of the housing authority.
Great. Chair Wizard, are you able to comment on that? And I'll just, I think there's a little, I just want to make sure we're really clear, right? So one of the messages we just sent was, please don't make any dramatic changes until we have a chance to talk about it. And another message that I think I share with you, Supervisor Alejo, is that we do in fact think that it would be beneficial to have at least the coordination of the HCD and the Housing Authority under a single umbrella, which would be fairly dramatic change. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page and we're not sending the mixed signals. But John, do you want to chime in about if there would be benefit to having a board special meeting where we can have a more detailed conversation about all of these issues next week, or having the board assign our own ad hoc committee to work with your folks on your recruitment?
Thank you very much. I would defer to your good judgment and a majority opinion on the structure of that, but certainly we're prepared to call a meeting of our ad hoc committee to meet with an ad hoc committee of yours, or to call a special joint meeting at the pleasure of the Board of Supervisors. We desperately want to be in coordination and not work against one another. And we think that since we are both apparently on the same sheet of music, it makes sense for us to more closely coordinate to ensure that one doesn't get in front of the other and slow this process any more than it might already be through the natural processes of public noticing.
Great, thank you. County Council, can you recommend what action we could take to form a committee that would be able to work immediately with the commission? Supervisor, I'll get Adams first, and then do you want to make that recommendation? Okay, Supervisor Adams.
Thank you. That's actually where I wanted to go, to see if we couldn't just form an ad hoc committee from our board, so that we could meet that group, the subgroup could meet with the ad hoc committee of the housing board, as John had kind of laid out for us, because I think that the two of them working together first would help craft what it is that we need to do as far as an open meeting that would focus on this. But I feel like having the two groups, our board and them, come together first would be, I think, the appropriate first step to do before we have an open meeting on the item. See, I'm getting at least one head nodding, but
Yeah, I'm not sure Les heard that question coming to him.
Les, the question would be, Les, I think he's doing some searching. He's doing some research on the spot.
Yeah, is the question have to do with the two ad hocs?
Yeah, could we form an ad hoc to meet with the housing authority, and then if needed, call a special meeting next week?
You can form an ad hoc today, if that was the question. Could this board act to create an ad hoc committee today? In my opinion, you may. The items on the agenda, and you can take a variety of actions related to the item on the agenda. As your CAO said, there are some delicacies, if you will, having ad hoc committees of two separate legal entities meeting together and how they report back to their legislative bodies. So we just need to be careful about that. But you can form an ad hoc today, give direction to reach out to the ad hoc from the housing authority, and we can advise on how they interact together.
All right, did you want to make a motion to that effect, Supervisor?
What I would say, the ad hoc would be helpful because there's going to be ongoing conversations, but I really think we should really tackle this by having a special meeting next week. Our staff put a good memo that goes over the history, how the housing authority was formed, how the Housing Development Corporation was formed. And then they looked at what other counties have done. For example, Los Angeles in 2018 consolidated their two entities, just like the way we're proposing, in order to make their organization more effective. So I think we haven't had that kind of a workshop, and rather than waiting to January, if we're available for a meeting, just focused on that, I think that would help us really advance the conversations. And if it's done with us, maybe with their board jointly, maybe everybody's on the same page versus just two of the 5 supervisors. I think at least for that kind of a workshop, I think would be helpful to then help us lay the goals for the rest of the year and early January. And then the ad hoc could help with other meetings that need to take place with other conversations in between or after that special meeting.
Supervisor Lopez?
Yeah, we moved pretty quickly here. I just wanted the opportunity to share some thoughts and opinions based on the conversation. Obviously, I would express the same sentiments as my colleagues in terms of the concerns about just some of the leadership changes that we've seen quickly take place within the organization. But more importantly, the call to make sure that nothing moves suddenly, that there are no sudden changes or quick shifts in policies, to make sure that the conversations that we're having are robust and that they really have the opportunity to change the organization into something that will positively impact the lives of Monterey County citizens into hopefully the indefinite future. I think that the conversation is needed, and I would agree that a special session with all the members of their committee as well as ours are able to get together to have a conversation about what that future looks like. I think that's the best way to approach this. I know that our communities are suffering now more than ever in terms of access to housing, and a lot of the questions around voucher availability will have immediate impacts to projects that are being proposed throughout our communities. And so I do think it's timely, and I would be willing to set the time aside in the coming weeks to make sure that we're able to put together that session in a way that's most effective. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Excellent. Thank you. So what I think I'm hearing support for is a joint special meeting of the Board of Supervisors and the Housing Authority for Monterey County to be called next week.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd make that the motion. And with also in the interim, having our CAO provide direction to their leadership about not making any changes counter to the intent of our referral in the interim.
Do we have a second for that motion?
I would second that with the question of if, is it direction or a recommendation? I saw Charles's eyes light up down there, so.
Right, I think it would be more of a request slash recommendation as opposed to direction. I'm not that powerful.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, in a second. So a motion from Alejo, a second from Lopez, and this is for to call for the chair of the Board of Supervisors and the chair of the Housing Authority to call a joint special meeting next week to discuss Housing Authority, HCD leadership and potential options moving forward. With the additional add-on to that, that our CAO will reach out to Housing Authority leadership to recommend or suggest that no dramatic changes counter to the referral that's been made happen prior to that meeting.
And I
Did I
guess
get that correctly?
mostly, I think I would say, first of all, it's HDC because we have HCD.
Oh,
here.
sorry, all the H's and
Right.
D's and C's.
And second, I think that request mainly has to go to their Board of Commissioners because no substantive action really can happen without the support of their Board of Commissioners, either of the Housing Authority or of the Housing Development Corporation. I think both of those are key. And then I would just for the information of the board and their Board of Commissioners and other interested persons, at this point, we're looking, I think, at the 21st or 23rd. It seems like the schedules, just talking to your offices, seem to be what might be possible. I see Valerie's concerned over here, but that's what we're looking at this time.
If it's the 21st, I would only be available that day until 11 o'clock.
We're trying to schedule it with all your offices and then of course the Board of Commissioners and their availability as well as assistance from the clerk's office.
So Charles, does their board have to meet to agree to this prior to our having a joint meeting?
Well, it's your kind of council can comment, but normally there's some authority from the chair to call special meetings in most situations.
I would agree with that. I think the challenge is making sure they can get a quorum for the appointed time.
All right, so I think we have a motion, we have a second, we've got clarification, and we're gonna see if there's any public comment on this item or this motion. We'll open public comment.
Ask you, members of the board, Mr. McKee, Mr. Gerard, Jay Donato with SEIU Local 521. I thank you for the efforts and the work that you're doing here. I can assure you that SEIU represents the staff at the Housing Authority, but not at HDC. And our staff is excited. I've spoken to most of them, and they're excited about having the potential for this county involvement. And so I appreciate Super Alejo's efforts on this and all of yours. In any way that SEIU and myself can be contributing, helping, I'm at your beck and call. So we are glad to be part of the process. And so let us know, and we are here. And the staff, once again, I think they look forward to some continuity. There's been some, you said, a lot of directors there, and morale isn't always the best. But they do a good job of serving our community who need housing, and also, the community who provides that housing also. So there are a lot of people in our community who utilize and benefit from these programs. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Additional public comment?
Frankie, last week.
Microphone. Here, we have a microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm Martha Rodriguez, and I'm here to address the problem about the structural damage at Timon Apartments, that the firemen came out and did say they had structural damage. Now, as far as that they're hiding, and I did my public comment, which they withheld from the agenda, and I addressed it. and I have the recording, and I have the structural damage with the fire department, and nothing's been happening. It's just, I've got cancer. The lady next door died fairly last week of cancer due to the mold that they've been having since 2014. So something has to be done because it's ready. We're waiting for the next earthquake and those buildings are going to collapse. So like I said, I addressed it to the first responders that's going to come out. We don't know how many casualties there's going to be, but there is going to be. We're just waiting for the earthquake. It's already wet the floor and they're hiding what's really happening. I have photos of the breakage and of the movement already, all below the beginning. The foundation, it's already shifted. So building A, B, and C have shifted. So I like I said, I addressed it to them. It's not the fireman's fault that they're gonna have to go do something about that because they already addressed it. And that's what they don't like.
Thank you for your comments. And I'll just ask Assistant Diego Chiles, can we make sure we have the information to follow up with those comments? Thank you. Okay, and I just wanted to circle back before we vote to Chair Wizard, joint special meeting next week. We can coordinate on details with the attempt to get a quorum of both bodies. Does that work for you?
Yes, Madam Chair. I've just sent a message to our clerk to ask her to inquire with the other commissioners about their availability, and I anticipate we will have a quorum on either of those days.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you. And we'll take a roll call vote. Thank you.
Supervisor Alejo?
Aye.
Supervisor Phillips?
Aye.
Supervisor Lopez?
Aye.
Supervisor Adams?
Aye.
And Chair Supervisor Root Askew.
Aye. And again, I want to thank everyone for allowing me to take this out of order and thank the commissioners for as you said, the Herculean work that you're doing to step in as volunteers to ensure that a critical agency in Monterey County continues to meet the essential needs of our community members who rely on Housing Authority vouchers and Housing Authority development projects. We value and appreciate everything you've done to step in right now. Okay. Circling back to item number 5, which is the, okay. Item number 5, consider options to amend the commercial cannabis tax structure rates and penalties and special interest for delinquent tax accounts, and consider directing the cannabis program to amend Monterey County Code Chapter 7.100. After this, we do have item number 6, which is our supervisorial district boundaries, which I know a lot of folks are on the line waiting for. So hang tight, we will get to you next. But next up, we've got Joanne Iwamoto, our cannabis program manager, to make a brief presentation.
Thank you. Chair Askew, members of the board, Joanne Iwamoto, Cannabis Program. Here with me today is Miles Zechinek and Norma Aceves, cannabis analysts. We are here today to present options for the board to consider regarding amendments to the commercial cannabis tax structure and rates. I would like to share that staff had limited time to prepare this report, but we did our best to provide meaningful information to a complex situation that requires critical analysis. In the words of the industry, the outcomes today will present quote unquote real world implications. The program relies on reliable and accurate reporting of data to CCA. We will continue to work with the industry and CCA to analyze these data sets and provide updates of the seed to sale transactions within our industry supply chain so that you can make informed decisions. First, today, we will discuss the distribution tax, including the recommendations from the board's cannabis and budget committees. Then we will discuss the commercial cannabis cultivation tax rates, the automatic escalator, and the delinquent fines and fees. And then we will conclude with options for your consideration. Next slide, please. Each month, the program meets with industry members. The meeting provides an open forum to discuss relevant topics and concerns. For some time, the industry has voiced concern regarding the commercial cannabis tax structure and rates. Monterey County Code 7.100 imposes a cannabis commercial tax rate on distribution activities. When the distribution tax was set by the county, a concept, vertical integration, was not allowed under state law. State law has since changed and vertical integration is allowed. The current distribution tax rate is 3% of gross receipts. Commercial cannabis distribution activities typically occur when a wholesaler or provider of a service transfers commercial cannabis products from one licensee to another. Or a licensed distributor may provide the services of packaging, repackaging, labeling, relabeling, and storage. Currently, we have 44 state distribution licenses within 113 business operators. Vertical integration is when a business has control of multiple points of the supply chain. An example is when a business operator has a cultivation license, a distribution license, and a manufacturing license. There aren't any fully integrated businesses within the unincorporated area. However, there are 4 who are integrated from cultivation to the manufacturing phase of the supply chain. Operators who meet the definition of vertical integration may deduct the cash value of transactions from gross receipts as outlined in the code, and I would defer to the Treasurer Tax Collector's Office on details of this allowance. The industry has provided concern for the following. Number 1, they feel there's a competitive disadvantage when compared to other jurisdictions that do not impose a distribution tax. Number 2, the cannabis product is taxed at every stage of the supply chain. And 3, distributors must be profitable on very small margins or they will be vulnerable to undercutting by distributors in other jurisdictions who do not impose such a tax. In fiscal year 1920, distribution tax revenue collected was approximately $840,000. In July of 2020, the county required all business operators to submit their metric API key to collect data and confirm gross receipts. By the end of that fiscal year, distribution tax revenue collected was $1.2 million. Lastly, in July and August of 2021, the program presented similar presentations to the Cannabis and Budget Committees. The Cannabis Committee recommended to reduce the rate to 0%, but asked that we proceed to the Budget Committee. The Budget Committee directed staff to this full board with a recommendation to reduce the tax rate to 1% of gross receipts. Next slide. And now I'm going to move into the second phase, and that is the commercial cannabis tax rates, the escalator, and then the penalties and fines. The industry requested a subcommittee be formed of county staff and industry members. A subcommittee was formed of 6 county staff, 6 industry business owners / operators, and 6 local attorneys / consultants. The subcommittee met twice, and the program presented updates regarding these discussions to the Cannabis Committee on November 17th and 29th. And these are the highlights of the meeting. Number 1, in response to the drastic decline in wholesale prices, the industry proposes an indefinite reduction to commercial cannabis cultivation tax rates that matches the quote-unquote 3-2-1 taxing model implemented by the counties of Humboldt and Lake. This rate reduction would reflect a 60% decline in tax rates today. Number 2, the industry requests a suspension or removal of the automatic annual tax escalator. 2 suspensions of the escalator have occurred in past fiscal years. As you recall, in fiscal year 2021, a suspension was in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. In fiscal year 21-22, A suspension was also approved in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, in addition to a local breakout of the hop latent virus in April of 2021. Number 3, the industry requests a stay on penalties and interest for any delinquent account during this current fiscal year, which ends on June 30th, 2022. And number 4, the industry has made several observations and they have a suggestion. Their overhead costs have increased. Their direct costs of producing commercial cannabis products are increasing. There are and will continue to be workforce layoffs. Their finished goods are being sold at a much lower price point. Industry businesses are carrying accounts receivables for longer periods of time and are challenged to collect, which further impact their cash flow. And their suggestion is the board should consider a review of the cannabis program staffing levels and suggest reducing staff as the business entities become fully permitted and require less county monitoring. Next slide. Here on the chart on your screen displays the significant decline in the wholesale price points for mixed light cultivation. Highlighted for you is the month of October in 2020. And then again, you can see the drop in price point in August of 2021. Again, in November of 2020, you see the price point, and now you see the current significant drop in wholesale pricing. Mixed light pricing is down approximately 62% from July of 2021 and 61% from November of 2020. Indoor pricing is down 32% from July of 2021 and 22% from November of 2020. Next slide, please. Staff have made other observations. Through the CCA data, staff has observed an increase in operator inventory levels due to the decline in wholesale price points and assumes the operator is in the quote unquote waiting game of determining the optimal time to sell. Number 2, higher inventory levels suggest reduced sales, which impacts cash flow and could lead to delays of infrastructure improvements and employee layoffs. Number 3, in July of 2021, staff determined the cannabis industry employed 2,400 employees. The program does not have current data, but can request an update from the industry if the board desires. Number 4, the program interviewed the CEO budget director, and we will defer to Mr. Vega to provide comments or answer any questions on budget impacts for this year and perhaps next year. And lastly, during each fiscal year, the program provides commercial cannabis tax revenue estimates, but these figures can and will likely change due to approved modifications of cultivation square footage and the ongoing nature of the market correction. And at this time, I'm going to pass this over to Miles, who is going to update you on the cannabis program forum. The forum is a group of approximately 13 counties. We meet quarterly, and Monterey County hosted the last meeting.
Thank you, Joanne. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Askew, and other Board of Supervisors. Miles Etchernick, Cannabis Program Analyst for the Monterey County Cannabis Program. So as Joanne referenced, thank you. The forum consists of 13 counties as far north as Nevada County and as far south as Santa Barbara County, and we meet quarterly. I will share a summary from our most recent meeting, including updates about cannabis tax rates and the collections of other jurisdictions. The Department of Cannabis Control's recent listserv identifies 7,085 active cultivation licenses in the state. The table, as shown on your screen and your attachment B, illustrates the differences in cultivation types by jurisdiction. This type of analysis is intended to normalize differences in scale and draw more effective comparisons between the jurisdictions. This table is filtered down to the top 12 counties in terms of cultivation licenses. Using Monterey County licenses as an example, roughly 80% are mixed light, 9% are nursery, 8% are processor, and 4% are indoor. Compare this to the top ranked Santa Barbara County, which is 71% outdoor, 25% mixed light, 2% nursery, and 2% processor. While the mixed light license counts are similar at 401 and 438 respectively, their proportions vary drastically between the jurisdictions, with 80% and 25% respectively. Looking at the proportion of mixed lights licenses of other counties, Humboldt and Trinity are our next closest, and their proportions are at 61 and 63% respectively. Next slide, please. Here are the updates for the counties that participated in the forum. Nevada County is considering moving from their current 2.5% of gross receipts model to a canopy tax following the 3-2-1 model referenced earlier by Joanne. Santa Cruz County reported a 70% decline in their tax revenue relative to the prior fiscal year, but the county has not seen an increase in tax delinquency. Operators are reportedly fallowing their fields because they are not profitable to harvest. Santa Cruz County's Board of Supervisors has not requested a reduction to the 6% of gross receipts for cannabis operators at the time of writing, but may be considering an ordinance to permit consumption lounges in the future. Their county licensing office has audited retail dispensaries for years and will begin audits of the non-retail operators soon. San Luis Obispo County recently put a stay on their automatic increase that would have raised the gross receipts-based tax from 6% to 8%. This was in part due to reports of operators fallowing their fields. Santa Barbara reported their current year tax collections are 40% below their projections. And lastly, Sonoma County operators were affected by mold and saw additional crop destruction, and they are working on a request to their Board of Supervisor to freeze their tax rates. I will turn the presentation back to Joanne now.
Okay, thank you, Miles. Next slide, please. So in preparing the report, we would like to update you on the recent modifications to the commercial cannabis cultivation square footage. As you recall, in October of 2021, this board approved an amendment to Monterey County Code Chapter 7.90 to allow a second modification to canopy size. The Treasurer Tax Collector staff estimated that pending and approved modifications that took the cultivation square footage to 0 will result in an approximately $900,000 decline to the current fiscal year cultivation tax revenue. The Treasurer Tax Collector staff also reports that approved modifications will result in an additional $450,000 decline to the current cultivation tax revenue. And just to kind of put some perspective on that, for this fiscal year, the program has received 12 modifications, of which have been approved, 3 to increase, and 9 to decrease. Next slide, please. As our presentation concludes, staff has prepared the options to consider. Number 1, reduce the distribution tax rate from currently 3% to either 1 or 0%. Number 2, for rate considerations, we have prepared 2 models. The first model is reducing the mixed light commercial cannabis tax rate to $4, the indoor rate to $7, and the outdoor rate to $1.50. Or another model is $3 for mixed light, $6 for indoor, and $1 for outdoor. Or the board could recommend a rate structure for each cultivation type, mixed light, indoor or outdoor. Number 3, eliminate the automatic tax escalator. And number 4, place a stay on delinquent commercial cannabis tax accounts, penalties, and fines on unpaid installments of the annual commercial cannabis business tax until June 30th, 2022. For numbers 1 and 2, the staff recommends that if there is a reduction in rate, that they become effective as of January 1st, 2022. The staff has prepared a table, which is actually your attachment B. And can we go to the next slide, please? So as you can see on your screen, the current rate is the far left column, where mixed light is 5, indoor is 8, outdoor is 250, and nursery is 1. And the projected tax revenue was based on the square footages that were reported or registered with the program in July of 2021. And so you see the proposed tax revenue for this current year to be about 21.3 million. Scenario 1 reduces mixed light to 4, indoor to 7, and outdoor to 150. And then the projected revenue for the current fiscal year would be 17.9 million, and for next year, 16.1. Scenario 2 reduces the mixed light rate to 3, indoor to 6, and outdoor to 1. And again, and I'm sorry, the distribution tax for the scenario 1 would be 2%, and then for scenario 2 would be 1%. And then for scenario 2, the estimated tax revenue for this year would be 16.1 million. For next year, it would be 12.5. Now, I just want to add that for the distribution, manufacturing, and retail, we don't receive that data consistently every month. And so we've projected those numbers based on this current fiscal year. Next slide, please. And so the recommendations of this report are to consider the options. Number 2 is to direct staff to amend Monterey County Code 7.100 with an effective date of January 1st, 2022, and to provide direction as appropriate. And this would conclude our presentation, and we would be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you for all of the last minute work to get this on a special meeting agenda before the end of the year. I'm going to see if our Cannabis Committee reps want to comment first.
Yes, Madam Chair, and I think we'll let
Sure.
Chair
Yeah,
Lopez
thank
go
you.
first, and I'll go second.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing from the public on this. We've understood that this issue has existed for quite some time in terms of the changing economics around this particular commodity and the industry as it continues to emerge as a new industry in our county and throughout the state. And so I really want to hear from the public, but I appreciate staff's ability and willingness to turn this around quickly and get it back to us to a point that we can make some decisions to hopefully reduce some of the job loss that is a possibility here if we don't make some of these changes quickly. And so, again, I look forward to hearing from the speakers today. We've heard from several of them at the committee, but I want to appreciate staff's willingness and clear communication with industry to bring this back to us to make some decisions today. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it was imperative as members of the Cannabis Committee that our board take action to help provide some and ameliorate the drop in prices, but provide some relief to the industry. I think the goal is to kind of be able to keep the investment and the jobs and the businesses that we have in Monterey County. We have to keep a vibrant industry, but there is certainly a lot of change statewide, primarily because of the overproduction in the cannabis growth that is resulting in a major drop in prices. But I think this is a balancing act. We approved a budget in June. And so when we cut, it impacts our budget and the services that we deliver in terms of core county services to our residents. So that's certainly a concern, but it's also looking at where can we make changes and do it quickly. And I'm glad we have a goal to implement this starting in January. Those payments are not due till March to the end of that quarter. So this gives a few months for them to prepare and to make those adjustments and to collect those taxes at the end of that quarter. But we certainly, when this came to the cannabis committee, we also looked at the drop in prices. And when the industry was looking for the 3-to-1 based on what other counties are doing, but in Monterey County, for the example, on the indoor growth, which is currently at $8, they didn't see as big of a drop as the mixed light cultivation. So that's where I had said, why are we going to drop that? Just because some other counties doing that, when if it was a 12% drop in price, it seems to be rational to have a 12% drop in the taxation in that type of indoor growth. Where the biggest challenge is, which is most of the growth in Monterey County in the nurseries, it's the mixed light, and that's where it had the most drop. And that is where staff, I think we had the discussion whether dropping it from 5 to either 4 or to 5. That's where the conversation was, and it's hard just gauging where the prices are now, because usually in the winter the prices drop the most, and then it kind of picks up in the spring again with demand. So we know that just a part of where prices drop, but I think we do recognize there is a challenge in industry, and we are concerned that some of these businesses not might be able to stay afloat if we don't provide this tax relief very soon. So that's the goal, and we're trying to look at numbers that really reflect where the prices have dropped to provide a relief that is proportional to what we're seeing in terms of price drops in prices.
Great. We do have, did you want to, okay.
I know, I was going to ask the staff to bring back the chart if that would be
Oh,
helpful.
perfect. Yep, that would be
Yeah.
fabulous. I'll take it, open it to my colleagues for any additional comments before we go out to the public. I don't see any other hands raised. So let's open it up to the public for public comment at this point. And I know that there has been robust conversation at the Cannabis Committee. So hopefully this isn't the first time that folks have had a chance to voice their concerns. I know we've also received quite a bit of written correspondence to the board about this particular item. But we will start with Aaron Johnson, followed by Robert Roach, and we're going to have a timer up on the screen. I would just ask that you watch the timer so that I don't have to interrupt anyone. But we welcome you to our board meeting today and appreciate you spending the time to share your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Minute 30 is tough to get through all of this under the circumstances. I will say that we as an industry have done what we've promised when you have lowered the taxes in the past. That includes increasing our square footage, et cetera. So I am here to ask you to seriously consider going down to $2 a square foot for mixed light. The numbers that were up on the screen are a little bit concerning to me because it assumes under a $3 square foot on the far right, it assumes that 4 million square feet would be in production. And I have clients that have had to lower the square footage in accordance with the rules over the last 3 or 4 months. And that's because they could not afford the tax in its current form. Further, if we do drop it to $2, what we're looking at, another way to look at it for the year, for the fiscal year, is a blended rate, because they are being charged $5 a square foot at the moment, and we're talking July through December. And so, in the spirit of the partnership that we have with the county and establishing a robust industry with a lot of jobs, I plead to you to seriously consider $2 a square foot and eliminate the tax escalator. And we're willing to come back to the table when the prices rise. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Next up, we have Robert, followed by Christina.
I would like to thank the staff for all the communication and all the work necessary to bring our pleas forward to your subcommittee and now the full board. And thank you for your consideration. In 2018, this board reduced the tax rate for mixed light by $10 a square foot, or 60%. That was not the lowest rate that the consultant and staff presented on their chart. It was the next lowest. Don't do that this time, because even the lowest option in this chart is too high. A $2 reduction is not enough. This time the situation is worse. It's different because we've hit that inflection point where the supply has overtaken the demand for the foreseeable future. They're still planting. The industry consensus was they need a $2 rate for mixed light. It makes us competitive with other counties. Lake County's increased to $2.15, and maybe that's a reasonable compromise. But anything higher will just bring more pain. Do we have any information on the demographics of the businesses most likely to fail? How many women and minority-owned cannabis businesses are teetering on the edge? I suspect that those are some of the ones that will fail first because they're leasing their facilities and they don't have big cash reserves. Our position on a distribution tax that should go to zero needs to be eliminated as Santa Cruz has done. It's a competitive edge. A 1% rate will raise little revenue, will still have the same administrative burden on both sides. The distribution tax rate should go to zero.
Thank you for your comments today, Robert. Next up, we have Christina, followed by Joey.
Hi there. Thank you for presenting, Joanne. That was really, really well done, and the rest of the Cannabis Committee. So I'm Christina DePacey. I run Monterey Till for off Encinal. We have 210,000 square feet. I think the chart of the price decrease is it's an optimistic chart because not only are prices around $400 a pound right now, no one's really buying. So the demand isn't there, and we're all sitting on massive inventories of product that we cannot sell. And with the burden of the taxes, it's a dark and future. And we're a women-run business. We lease our property. We've already been in negotiations with our landlords to decrease our rent by 50 to 75%. It's really, really challenging up there. We're doing layoffs, and it's just a real struggle to stay afloat. And I don't know when this will end, but any support from the county that can help us succeed is really great. We don't have access to loans or anything like that. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments today. Next up, we have Joey, followed by Oliver.
Hey, can you hear me?
We can. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'll try to get it as quick as I can. First thing on the distribution tax, as mentioned in the staff report, distributors operate on extremely thin margins. Both Santa Cruz and the city of Salinas have a distribution tax rate of 0%, which makes the most sense for many reasons. I cannot get into all these details with my time permitted. I asked the board to consider a 0% tax, which will help get our industry closer to being treated as a normal wholesale business. On the canopy tax, this tax urgency has been triggered by the steep decline in pricing. However, the industry has always asked that Monterey maintain competitive rates. The industry proposed a 3-2-1 model because it is in alignment with other large cultivation counties in the state. The $6 proposed in the staff report is fair for indoor, so I'll focus my comments on the greenhouse tax rates. While lowering the tax rate may cause a 25% decrease in tax revenue, the industry is seeing 50 to 60% decreases in pricing. We need to look at Humboldt and Lake County and Santa Barbara, Mendocino. While Monterey County is predominantly a greenhouse county, these other counties' production has a major effect on the market we all share. Also, being predominantly greenhouse means our operators experience much higher costs to operate as the infrastructure needed is extremely expensive. I don't have time to discuss all the nuances that are at play in this decision. The reality is that even if the prices, as CCA alludes to, were to increase, no one knows what that will look like. Is it $100? Is it $500? So I'm asking the county to consider $2 per square foot at maybe a 2-year period so we can evaluate the data. Thank you.
Thank you, Joey, for your comments today. Next up, we'll go to Oliver, followed by Jake. Oliver, we've given you permission to unmute your microphone. You'll have to do that on your side.
Hello, board.
Ooh. Not the best connection. All right, let's come back to Oliver. Sorry, Oliver, we're going to get you a better connection. We need to bridge this broadband gap. We'll go to Jake, and then we'll circle back to Oliver again and see if we can get better Wi-Fi connection there. Jake, you're up.
Can you hear me, Madam Chair?
We can. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate Joanne putting this together, and I appreciate the emergency nature of this and for you all hearing. I represent Ladybug Farms. Can you hear me? Hello?
Sorry about that. I think we've got everyone muted again. Go ahead.
Can I have
Go
my
ahead,
time?
Jake.
All right. I appreciate the time. Thank you, Madam Chair. I represent Ladybug Farms. We are, to my knowledge, the largest operator in Monterey County. We have over 700,000 square feet of greenhouse space and currently 500,000 square feet of canopy that is licensed. I'm pleading out to you. We're a family operated and owned business. My father-in-law's grandfather started this business in the 1940s. We still grow flowers, and cannabis has been a lease of life to our business. It's enabled us to grow our workforce by 4 times, increase wages by 25% over the last 3 years, give health benefits and insurance to all of our staff, and continue to grow this business of families. We're facing an unprecedented challenge in the days and weeks and months ahead. Without some relief, I fear that a lot of small to medium to even some large operators are going to fail. And what I do not want is for this industry to leave Monterey. I believe Monterey can be one of the biggest production regions and one of the most fruitful production regions for this crop over the next decades to come. What I do fear is with a low competitiveness against other counties like Santa Barbara, like Ventura County, that has a lot of greenhouse space coming online, this industry in Monterey may fall to the wayside and thousands of jobs lost with it. I say this with a monumental urgency that some changes need to happen, and tax relief would be extremely appreciated.
Thank you for your comments, Jake. We're going to circle back and try Oliver again and see if we got some better internet for Oliver. Oliver, let's try this again.
Okay. Can
Oliver, we cannot hear you. Okay.
Oliver, try turning off your video, Oliver.
Yeah, it's off. Oliver, why don't you try calling in on the phone to join us? We're going to move on to our other public comment, but you might try calling in on a landline to the Zoom phone number. If someone could make sure that he gets that phone number, that would be awesome if we're able to send that over. It is on the website and on the front of the agenda, but the phone number does allow you to make public comment. You can just give us a call and raise your hand. All right, we're going to move along to Michelle, followed by Kelly. Michelle, you are up. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. This is Michelle Hackett with Riverview Farms, family owned and operator here in Monterey County. My family has not come from cannabis. However, we've operated in this space with the first exemption back in 2016. There's no other commodity in the Salinas Valley or the state that is taxed the way cannabis has been taxed. The drop in price that we have seen recently is just the beginning. There are several cultivators in the Monterey County sitting on hundreds, let alone thousands of pounds of finished flower, bulk flower, budlets, trim, prepackaged goods, and that's just the beginning. With a limited amount of retailers and an overabundance of supply, there's nowhere for this product to go. We need immediate relief. $3, even $2 will not be saving this industry. We do not believe that Monterey County should be the only county responsible for giving relief or support to our county. Next, we will be working at the state level to immediately pay, hopefully, a zero tax. There's many other jurisdictions, counties, and businesses coming together to make impactful decisions now to save the cannabis industry. I'm speaking solely on behalf of mixed light cultivators, as we are the mass majority of our cultivators in Monterey County. We need immediate assistance or these businesses will fail. This is not a short-term resolution. This is something we do not see changing, possibly even in the next year. So your consideration is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments today, Michelle. Next up, we have Kelly, followed by Jennifer.
Sorry, Doug, what did you need?
Thank you, Michelle. Next up, we've got Kelly, followed by Jennifer.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Administrator, thanks for this opportunity. Obviously, as a local operator representing Lowell Farms, this is Kelly McMillan, by the way, we support any tax relief you can give us, so I won't harp on that subject anymore. I do want to suggest, though, that as a resident and taxpayer here in Monterey County, I think it's patently unfair that we here in Monterey County make you bear the burden of tax relief when the state of California continues to reap the benefits of cannabis tax across the state and then distribute those taxes to free riders, big jurisdictions, cities and counties that have outlawed cannabis, yet still gain the benefit of counties like ours who do contribute. And so in addition to the urgent tax relief that we need now to stabilize our local market, I really think we being the Board of Supervisors and the cannabis industry, partner together to pressure the state, as many other jurisdictions are doing now, to reduce some of the burden that allows Monterey County to retain more of their tax revenue while still assisting the industry through these very difficult times. And I hope that's something the board would think about and contact the cannabis industry locally to partner with us. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Kelly. Next up, we have Jennifer, followed by, I'm sorry, I lost track. Jennifer, go ahead. We've got you up next.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Oh, shoot. That was, sorry, we lost you, Jennifer. We are going to apologies. Okay, Jennifer, we've got you again. Sorry about that.
So can you hear me now?
We can. Yep, we've got you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This is Jennifer Rosenthal, and thank you for hearing us today through the chair. I would like to thank staff greatly for the time and effort they have put into gathering this data and setting forth their suggestions to the board. I would also like to thank the board for hearing us under such urgency. I am echoing the statements of all of the previous speakers and today asking you to reduce the tax structure across the board as proposed in the staff report. But I think the utmost urgency is for the mixed light cultivators. And today I am asking you to strongly consider reducing their tax to $2. And in doing so, this will allow most all of the businesses to remain open. It will allow them to continue operating and continue employing hundreds of people, not only at the farms, but the other companies that service the farms, such as contractors, labor companies, and the like. And in doing so, it will continue flourishing in Monterey County substantially. I would like to also just reiterate and assure you that as the market changes and with all hope and bounces back, we would like to continue these conversations with you throughout the duration of this industry. And I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for joining us today, Jennifer. Next up, we have a phone number ending in 103. You'll need to press *6 to unmute yourself, followed by Joey. So this is the phone number ending in 103.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Chris Boggs at Wave Rider Nursery. I think most of the important points have already been touched on pretty well. I did want to stress there's been much talk about our revenues way off and the sales price is way off, but our costs are way off as well, and they're in the wrong direction on most items. For example, the soil that we use over the past 12 months, we've seen 2 price increases equivalent to more than 20% increase over the past year. And the same thing goes for everything from fertilizers, which are much harder to get certain fertilizers right now. So we're paying sometimes double what we were paying 12, 16 months ago. That along with everything else, I mean, you guys know PG&E, those prices never go down, they go up. Labor costs, workers' comp, everything is going up in terms of costs, and our revenue is going down quite significantly. So I would just want to stress the situation is dire, and I really think the board should consider $2 on mixed light. It would hopefully be enough to help, although I'm scared that it's not enough. Also, on the distribution tax, I believe that if you're selling your own product that you grew on your farm, the distribution tax should be 0. It doesn't make sense for us to be taxed as we grow it and then taxed again as we sell it. And thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments today. Next up, we have Joey, followed by Ricardo. Joey?
Hi, yes. This is Joey with Pacific Organics and Wellness. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you. I just wanted to point out that, you know, cultivators essentially with the distribution license already pay 0% distro tax. So charging another distributor a tax just to pick up his neighbor's product and drive it somewhere more cost effectively isn't helpful in this situation. And without a robust distribution network in Monterey County, you won't have a successful cultivation. And as far as I know, there's no major distributors located in Monterey County because they can get better tax elsewhere. So I know it's a problem for us, and I imagine it's a problem for other people. So thank you.
Thank you for joining us and for your comments today. Next up, we have Ricardo, followed by the phone number ending in 961.
Thank you, board. Thank you, Madam Chair, for hearing me. I just chimed in today. I didn't know this was going to be on the topic, but my name is Ricardo from North County. I'm familiar with the cannabis industry, and from the medical days and to now the legal. For legal cannabis, and have dozens of friends and family that are currently in the industry. The previous statements have simply been a group of public that have special interest in this being approved. You heard them speak already. Many different types of people. This is like any other industry. When are the profits percentages are going to be enough? Is making a lot of money at the same pace not enough year by year? The people it affects are the owners' profits and losses, not jobs. Maybe a little, but that's because the profits aren't what they were expected. From what I hear and see on these people's social media, they are living good. Hundreds or thousands of unfinished or finished marijuana is because they grew too much. Thanks for the threats of leaving the county. Spoke just like a true big business. They just go up too much. They ask for it all the time. When is it ever going to be enough? I mean, you got to look at everything in perspective, every single thing, and just take that into consideration for approving something today. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments today. We're going to go next to the phone number ending in 961. You'll need to press *6 to unmute yourself, and then we'll go to Michael. The phone number ending in 961 is up next.
Hello, supervisors. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Excellent.
All
Thank you for
right.
calling in.
Thank you so much. Sorry about that. Thank you, Madam Chair and County Supervisors. Oliver Bates here from the Big Sur Farmers Association. And really appreciate a little public comment here today. And we really support all the needs of the tax-paying cultivators in Monterey County and hope they see some relief. Wanted to share a couple numbers from our advocacy. Much of the cost of cannabis dropping so much isn't just an overproduction. I'd like to note that prior to 2016, there was 10,000 cannabis dispensaries. Since then, and since the legalization or the regulation of this new market, it's grown exponentially. At the moment, we only have 1,400 licensed dispensaries in the state of California. So it's going to take quite a time for them to catch up with that. Also want to relate to the outdoor farmers. It's such a low price now. All of our colleagues are following, literally letting it rot on the vine because they can't afford to do anything else with it. And so that's a sad case. We'd like to support our colleagues' suggestions from Nevada County as far as a 3-2-1 tax rate, and we feel like that's quite hopeful. We don't see it getting any better for some time. And with our cultivators, we want everyone in Monterey County to do really well. And we'd like to see them see some relief. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your perseverance and joining us for public comment today. Next up, we have Michael, and this is my last call for public comment.
Yes, hello. Thank you, Madam Chair and Board of Supervisors. My name is Michael Ferguson. I am an owner-operator of Monterey Botanicals here in Salinas. And I just want to concur with what the other, cultivators who've spoken and other, industry supporters. What we're saying here is, this is about market dynamics. This is really tough times. Cannabis is burdened in so many ways, from taxation perspective, from federal, state to local. The distribution tax is going to definitely hurt local producers. Just make us less attractive to buying product from other areas. Most producers out here, we grow at high volume, and we're doing some retail, some wholesale, but we need to make sure we're competitive with the rest of the state. Let's not mess that one up. And 3-2-1 model for cultivators, I think, is a reasonable standard that seems to be evolving. These are tough times. Let's keep this industry going and keep the jobs and revenue here in Monterey County. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I didn't check to see, is there any public comment in chambers today? We don't have many in the audience. So, all right, with that, we will close public comment. I will bring it back to the board for consideration. And could we put the action request back up on the screen so that we're all working off of the options to consider slide. Right, and I'll bring it back to my colleagues. Supervisor Phillips, did you have any comments? We didn't hear from you earlier in the discussion.
Well, I think definitely some relief is in order. I think we probably set the tax too high to begin with, and we reduced it and made some changes there. I think certainly with the distribution, with the changes that have been made, it seemed to me that we reduced that to 0 or 1%. And I think reduction in some of the other ones. But I think what Kelly McMillan said is there ought to be some push at the state level to bring some relief. I do think it's not all on us, though. We didn't. There was a big push by the industry. They kept saying we have to grow more. We have to grow more. We have to grow more, and that's part of the reason for the price dropping. But the overproduction has caused some of that. But I do think relief is in order. At the same time, see them belt tightening. I think the county should do some belt tightening, like I've been saying for some time, and be more efficient in our enforcement of it, and not be spending so much revenue on enforcement of cannabis. I think we could be more efficient in how we do the enforcement.
Great, thank you. Supervisor Adams.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all of the people who have come forward with their comments and their thoughts. I think that we learn the most from people who are actually experiencing it, and I thank you so much for being straightforward with what you're experiencing, and I think that's very, very helpful. So I just had a couple of questions. So if there's a reduction in revenue, and I will be making a suggestion for that, what would we need to cut from our budget, from the county budget? And would we do an across the board cut to departments, or would it be for specific programs?
Do we have anyone from the budget office with us on the line? Ezekiel Vega?
This is Ezekiel Vega from the County Budget Office, County Budget Director. So it will be up to the board on how those reductions will be made. As you know, cannabis revenue is discretionary revenue. Just like any other discretionary revenue that is received, it is allocated based on a specific formula to the different departments. So right now, just to give you an idea, if the board was to choose to make a reduction for every $1 million reduction on the cannabis revenue, that will mean a 0.5% reduction on discretionary revenue available for departments. So that means that there will be that much less revenue available for departments. So you were to do 2.5% or $2.5 million or $2 million, that would be about 2.5% if you do a $5 million reduction. So it just depends on what scenario you choose, what type of reduction and that translates to. But just to give you an idea, again, for every $1 million in reduction in the tax rate, that will mean about 0.5% reduction on general fund discretionary revenue that will be available for departments.
So Ezekiel, would we have to take it from discretionary revenue? I'm going back to Supervisor Phillips' comment that it sounds like we've got so much cannabis that's, you know, ready to go. Maybe we don't have to do as much enforcement as we've done in the past. I mean, why would we just take from the discretionary revenue? Couldn't we take for some of the actual cost of running the program? Would we not be able to look at that as well, should the board so choose?
Yes, the board has that choice.
Okay.
If, for example, that what I'm saying is that right now the way that it's distributed is based on a formula. If the board chose and said, you know, what we want to do is to take a direct reduction from the program itself, you could direct us to do that.
And would the ratio remain the same? It would be for every $1 million, it would be 0.05%.
No, if you have a specific direction by the board, if the board says make a reduction from this specific program, there will be a direct impact to that program. If that's what the board chooses to do. Yeah.
Okay, great. So we would have that opportunity to determine that. Okay, thank you. Correct. Thank you very much for that. Quite truthfully, this really sort of underscores my longstanding position that we should not be relying on cannabis revenue for ongoing expenses due to the volatility of the market. You know, it simply hasn't settled down. You know, it's been a few years now, but it's just not settled down. And I'm sad to see that the people who have invested so much in making this burgeoning new business work are facing what they're facing right now. And I think we need to do everything that we possibly can to help them. In response to Supervisor Phillips, as far as the state goes, I know that there is a strong effort being made now within the industry to have a bill put forward that would address the state tax on cannabis, because obviously we're not the only county that's facing this issue right now. So my hope and expectation is that there will be some grace given from the state as far as cannabis taxes goes. And then locally for us, again, listening to what we're hearing and really wanting to be able to make a statement. I don't think that we can mince things here. My hope is that we would reduce the distribution tax from where it stands now to 0. I agree with the comments that why should you have to pay tax on it twice? And that's what a number of the growers are having to face. So I would say let's completely eliminate, and this is all, you know, like for just a period of time until everything sort of catches back up again. Who knows, 2 years probably, but that's just a guesstimation. But at any rate, I would reduce the distribution tax down to 0. And I would suggest that we go ahead and bite the bullet and follow the rules that a number of the other counties are doing now, which is the 3-2-1 model. And that would be $3 for indoor, and it would be $2 for mixed light and $1 for outdoor grow. I hope I had originally thought, you know, maybe 25% is too big a hit, which was one of the options provided. We should just go to 17%. But after hearing what I've heard from the farmers and the people in the industry, I think that we should go ahead and make a significant change in the taxing structure. So when the time comes, Madam Chair, I would really like to make a motion that we would eliminate the distribution tax, that we would follow the other counties who have gone forward with the 3-2-1 model, and that is $3 for indoor, $2 for mixed light, and $1 for outdoor. And those are my and also to eliminate the tax escalator. I think we've got to be able to help people here. We could place a stay on the delinquent commercial cannabis tax account penalties as well, and fines on unpaid installments of the annual commercial cannabis business tax until June of this year, June 30th, 2022. But it sounded as if people have been paying their taxes, even though they are in the dire circumstances that they are. So here I am amending my own motion. So 0 for distribution, 3, 2, 1, eliminate the tax escalator and put a stay on the delinquent commercial tax penalties and fines on unpaid installments until June 30th of 2022.
Okay, and that's a motion?
Yes, that's a motion.
Okay.
Madam
right.
Chair, I probably have a problem with the going down as far, the other ones I could agree with, but going down to the 3, 2, 1. But I'd like to hear from our recommendation of our cannabis committee before I feel comfortable in voting, obviously. So.
Okay, great. And I think Supervisor Alejo has his hand up here in person.
Yeah, and I would make a substitute motion because I also disagree with the 321 does not fit Monterey County. And as we analyzed in our committee, and as I just stated in my opening comments, we looked at and made sure that our recommendation mirrored the drops in prices. The drops in indoor has not dropped anywhere near significant as mixed use. And it doesn't make any sense to say we should drop it from $8 to $3, a 63% drop when the prices haven't dropped in that type of cultivation. So it's not, people, I know people advocate for it. Sometimes let's just do what another county is doing, but we have to look at what fits for our county and the prices for our county. And that's what our committee has done. So I would say, first of all, I think our county has been responsive to the industry. Back in 2018, when we dropped taxes for mixed by 2/3 from 15 to 5, this board had a lot of deliberations on whether that was the right move. And I certainly advocated for that drop, and I felt that decision, we were vindicated because every year since that drop, despite being 2/3, we were generating more revenue every year as a result of that stabilization and in terms of the taxation versus what the prices were at that time. And every year our cannabis tax has grown to $2 million each year, despite the drop. I just want to respond to enforcement. Enforcement is key to any industry because without people enforcing the rules, there's not a level playing field. So you need that within the permitted businesses, but especially it's needed in the black market. The black market is undermining our growers who are paying their taxes, who are getting their permits, who are following the environmental rules, pesticide issues, quality, contamination in their product, as we just saw in the press conference held by our district attorney's office yesterday. So I want to just emphasize that to have a good industry, it's not just having the right taxation and making sure businesses stay, but you have to have a mechanism where everyone knows the rules are being enforced. That's a part of having a vibrant industry in Monterey County. The last thing I want to say before I make my recommendation was having a frank conversation, as we did in 2018 with the industry, saying with whatever relief we decide today, as the industry rebounds, we should expect to have a conversation of raising these taxes to make sure that we're getting the revenue that we promised our communities. I know that every time we lower taxes, any future moment where we try to readjust it in a recovery of the industry, I hope that we don't get the pushback, because I know the natural tendency for any human being, any business, is to not have taxes raised at all. But I just want to say that with whatever our board decides, let's be frank, let's be honest, that as the industry rebounds, these taxes are going to at some point be readjusted to reflect the recovery within the cannabis industry. So on these points, on the main points here, I would say I agree with the distribution tax, and the distribution tax generates, I think, about $1 million a year in Monterey County with the 3% now. If we drop it to 1%, we're going to only generate 1/3 of that. If we drop it at 0, we lose all of that. I'm open to dropping dropping it to zero because that is where most of the counties have gone, including Santa Cruz County. I'm supportive. I think that makes logical sense. Number two, on the escalator, I think this has caused consternation because we have that automatic potential increase every year, even though we've deferred it. If that provides some relief to our cultivators, I would just replace it with making sure that in every budget year, we're relooking our committee, but cannabis committee look at it, our board look at it, and making sure that we're adjusting it to what makes sense for that particular year. This change is going to happen in January, but come in our budget hearings in June, we should be looking at it again to say what makes sense for the next fiscal year in terms of the right taxation rates, whether it's continuing what we did, whether it's lowering it, or whether it's increasing it. There's opportunities to do that, even if we remove the escalator. So I'm good with that. To stay on delinquents, I think that's something that our treasurer tax collector recommended. It gives her some discretion to look at certain cases and provide and waive those delinquency and penalties and fines. I think that's merited right now, and that gives Mary Zeeb that kind of ability to look at cases and be able to provide that. I think that makes sense right now. The only thing I would add to this recommendation is that Monterey County send a letter to the state asking that they also make their taxation adjustments. It can't just be on the backs of local governments. If there is these kinds of downward swings in prices, the state should also be a leader and make sure that they're adjusting their state taxation levels to be reflective of where the industry is at right now. And that could be official letter coming from all 5 of us. Now, just to the prices, going back, I'm good with lowering the indoor from 8 to 7. That's a 12.5% reduction. That is close to the reduction that we've seen in recent months in that particular type of cultivation. On the outdoor, we don't have very much of that, so I'm good with dropping that to 1. But I think in terms of the mixed, I think the question there is really, do we drop it to 4 or to 3? I'm good with choosing 3. I think that's the right sense for these next 2 quarters. And we could certainly look at where the industry is at when we look at the taxation levels for the fiscal year 2022 to 23. So that's where I'm at on that particular. I'm good at 3 for the mixed. And I think a question for, just so everyone's clear, I think I asked this in the Cannabis Committee to Mr. Ezequiel Vega to just let everyone know we had some projections of what our existing taxation revenue would bring in to the cannabis assignment account. Could you say what that is? And if we drop it to 3, how much less we would generate? Because it lets our board understand the decrease if we drop it from $5 a square foot to 3. Or maybe Joanne, you have an answer to that.
I was going to ask that we actually have another chart that we can show you the calculations based on a price point. Can we do that? Okay, thank you. Miles, can you show that?
Luis, could I just ask you a quick question?
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you for this. I really appreciate this. So actually, I think what I could do is to amend the motion, because we agree on everything except just what we're looking at as the 3 specific numbers. And I think the only one that I struggle with would be, I could easily do the mixed light to 3, but just the indoor. And so maybe if we could see a little bit more information based on what you had said, that the indoor people did not lose nearly as much as the mixed light. I could take another look at what we were bringing forward with that.
So just to make sure we're all on the same page, we had a motion from Adams, but we didn't have a second. Alejo, was yours a motion?
Yeah, that would be if Supervisor Adams lacked a second, then I would make that the motion.
So we have a motion from Alejo.
I'll second the Alejo motion. I'd like to make a few friendly amendments if allowed, but if there's conversation going, go ahead.
Okay, and I have a hand up from Supervisor, well, let's see, we'll go in order of the hand. So Supervisor Adams, did you want to finish your comments back to Supervisor Alejo about, we now have a motion with a second with friendly amendments coming?
Yeah, I still want to know, I don't know if I can be supportive of his $7 for indoor. So I wanted to see a little bit more information about the comparison of what people have lost in indoor, those that are doing indoor cultivation compared to the others. His comment was that mixed light has really lost a ton of money, and but far less for the people who are doing indoor. And I wanted to see, there was a chart that was up that showed that, I believe. Is that what you were quoting from, Luis?
Yes, there's a price on the different months, except when it came to Cannabis Committee, we didn't have the numbers for November, but we do have comparing from where we were July to October. But I think they added the November month in the most updated chart today.
We're going to pull up the slide. It's on page 4 of the PowerPoint presentation that should be attached to the agenda. The research analysis that shows the difference, the price differences between mixed and indoor from 20 to 21. We'll get that up on the screen for you, Supervisor Adams.
Thank you.
And do we want to go to Supervisor Phillips? Did you have a hand up? It's gone now. Okay, we'll go to Supervisor.
No, I'm pretty good with the direction we're heading here. So.
Okay, and Supervisor Lopez, did you want to make your friendly amendments?
Yes, I just want to completely agree with the majority of what Supervisor Alejo said. One key point I'm hoping we can put in the letter that he recommended we send to the state is requested reduction of 2/3 in terms of the state tax. And the reason for that is, at the end of the day, what it translates to on the ground for us is lost jobs in our communities. At the state level, they're collecting dollars, and we're not seeing a lot of that impact coming back to our communities, as was stated by Kelly McMillan during his comments. And as we look back at what we're able to do with our dollars, I think the letter should include the positive impact we had during COVID with those dollars in supporting our food bank and making sure that our response to COVID was appropriate to keep our communities safe. And so I think that's a strong argument to send to the state for reducing their allocation of tax dollars that I believe is around $145 a pound that they get per cultivated pound here in Monterey County. And I don't think that's appropriate given what we're able to generate here locally and do with that money. I would rather we keep it here. So to make that clear, again, I'm asking for a clear 2/3 reduction, as well as the argument of what we have been able to do with local dollars and positive impact to our community, and the end result of jobs in our community being the focus for us. What do you think of that, Supervisor?
I'm good with that additional direction for the letter, certainly.
Great. And then, looking at how we have this conversation, I agree with all the other points. One issue that I had was just that question of when we revisit, and I would like to put a number on it. For this particular data, we were using data from CCA to determine what the price per pound was. And I'd love to see a trigger, perhaps of $800, that would trigger us having a conversation again in the mixed light, meaning that would be a rebound of nearly 50%. And that would be a great time for staff to track that number and say, hey, we've hit the number. It's time to have the conversation again about where that tax is, so that it's not just something out there lingering.
I'm good with that.
Okay. With those two amendments, my second stance. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So for the escalator, would it be just to confirm, eliminating the escalator completely, but putting a $800 per pound mixed light, triggering of revisiting tax rates? So sort of amending the escalator, not necessarily eliminating it.
I'm good with that, because we always have the discretion to revisit rates at any time as part of our budget process or otherwise. So we have some flexibility, but if that's one of the conditions that Supervisor Lopez wants to add, to look at rates, whether that triggers it, or the board or the cannabis program director or the committee looking at it. So at some other point in time, I think we have that flexibility.
Either or, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, this has been a good conversation. Supervisor Adams, did you get the additional information you needed about the changes in pricing between mixed and indoor? Actually, let me make my comments first, and then I'll circle back to you if that's all right.
Sure.
I just want to think. I mean, this is a very new industry for Monterey County and for the state of California. The entrepreneurship is just incredible. The way that folks have come together to really create something out of nothing. Well, it wasn't nothing; it was something that was there before, but to find a way to take advantage of the legalization and really bring it into focus. I think we talk a lot, or I talk a lot about how important, I think jobs are important, but jobs that pay living wages and provide year-round employment these are exactly the kinds of jobs that we want to be supporting and promoting in Monterey County. And I just want to give credit where credit's due to the cannabis industry for their role in creating these kinds of good jobs for people in our community. So thank you for that. I recognize how significant that is. And then again, just thinking about everything that we're doing right now really is there's the immediate benefit that comes to the county's budget that really has effectively saved us in a handful of situations where the cannabis dollars allowed us to respond to local crisis and local opportunity in significant and meaningful ways. But on the other hand, we really are also working to create an industry that's well positioned to thrive once we're able to get some sort of federal legalization in place. And so the efforts, the decisions that we make today that allow our cannabis, our local cannabis industry to be well positioned for the future, I think is really where my mind is at. And so I'm comfortable supporting a reduction for those reasons. That really this is a long-term vision that we're working on, and so I'll be supporting the motion that's on the table today. And also want to thank the cannabis representatives who spoke both today and who've been actively engaged in working with our county staff so that we understand what the issues are and we can continue to be responsive. And I think those were my comments for this afternoon. Supervisor Adams, did you have additional comments?
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the slide that we have in front of us, it's looking at July 21-22, $8 is the current tax rate, and the staff's recommendation is moving it to $3. Yet we're saying $7.
That's not staff's recommendation.
Sorry. Let's go.
So tell me what this is then.
Yeah, Joanne, tell us what we're looking at.
I'm sorry, we were unclear of what the recommended indoor rate was. And so as soon as we understand that number, we can plug that in, and then you can see the projections for the current fiscal year and then for next year based on what they are today. So
I think the motion that's on the table right now is $7 for indoor would be proposed new.
Okay, there you go.
$1 for outdoor, proposed new, and $3 mixed light, proposed new, with a zero distribution. So we've got that down at 0. Yeah, so that would be, this is the proposed tax rate listed on this slide is what's the motion that's on the table currently.
Madam Chair, just looking at going back to indoor and the question that Supervisor Adams rose, if that other chart showed the price and drops, and this is data from our CCA, our cannabis our cannabis agency that Monterey County is part of, it collects data for numerous counties. But those just comparing prices, if you look at just the last 4 months, where the prices have really dropped tremendously from August, indoor dropped from in August to October, it only dropped from $1,561 to $1,555, a drop of $6 only in those 3 months, compared to mixed, which was at $878, and it dropped to $539, which was a 39% drop in price. Now we have the most recent month, and that drops it from $878 to $435 for the month of November. That's a 50% drop for mixed. When you compare it, there's been a more of a drop in the indoor. For the last month, it dropped from 1561 to 1151. Nonetheless, that's still a 26% drop. So nowhere near what we're seeing in the mix. And that's only for 1 month data. We have, I think, to adjust that some more. I think we need to see how these next few months go. We have a few more months to see what is happening, that it's kind of stayed there for the mixed. So I just wanted to show just the difference in drops between both types of growth.
And we do have our treasurer tax collector, Mary Zeeb, with us on the line. Ms. Zeeb, would you like to chime into the conversation?
Thank you, Chair Askew, Mary Zeeb, Treasurer Tax Collector. Yes, no, I appreciate the opportunity. I just want to get a little bit of clarification on these numbers. If I could ask the program if they have incorporated the modification data that's already known to us in those numbers, that would also be helpful. And secondly, if I could just get some confirmation, I understand your wishes are to make a mid-year modification to the annual tax, so it would begin January 1st. Distribution would be reduced to 0% with the 732. Confirmation on the stay of delinquent penalties.
And sorry, Mary, that would be a 731.
So, yeah, sorry.
Okay,
That's what I
very
had
good.
written, not what I
Thank
said.
you.
Thank you. Appreciate the clarification. The stay on delinquent penalties. I understand we are still only talking about the cultivation aspect of this. So it's on cultivation only. And my assumption would be we would want to do it like we did for the COVID penalty relief that we gave in April of 2020, where we allowed the cannabis industry to not incur any penalties for taxes unpaid in the third quarter, as long as they were paid on or before the end of the fourth quarter in total. If not, all the interest and penalty that would have normally accrued will revert back as if it was unpaid and there was no stay on penalty. And I just want to make sure that that's my understanding and that's how you would like that implemented. Thank you.
Did you catch all that in terms of the tax, the sand taxes for cultivation?
Yes, I don't know if any response to that, Ms. Iwamoto.
That would follow the stay and then the stay on the penalties as it was last year.
Yes, I'm
But
good
they
with
would
that.
be due and payable. The penalties would be due and payable if they were not, if the delinquent amount was not paid by the specific date. And if Mary could confirm.
Yeah, by the end of the fiscal year.
Yes, by the end of the fiscal year.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Mary, and for all of the clarifications. I think they were helpful.
Sure. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so wrapping back up conversation, we do have a motion on the table. County Council has a comment, and then we'll go to you, Supervisor Lopez.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, members of the board. Ms. Donlin has asked me to remind you that this is direction for staff to come back in January. There will need to be an ordinance amending the county code. So there'll be introduction early January with adoption as soon thereafter as we can. Thank you.
We would add that language to the motion that what you just said. Thank you. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, any further discussion before we take a roll call vote on this motion? Does everyone understand the motion on the table? It's
And just so
basically listed up on the screen.
And Madam Chair, just so we understand the impact, this is, I think what's on this chart here for the public to know, this is what we estimated if taxes were to stay the same at 21.362 million in this current fiscal year. Now that we're making adjustments mid-year, it will drop revenue to 15,949,000, which is a loss of about $5.4 million with today's decision. It has bigger implications for next year because now we're talking about a full year rather than a half year of adjustments. So rather than earning 21 million for next fiscal year with the changes, it drops our estimated tax revenue to 12.2 million. So this is there's significant impacts, almost $10 million of loss for next fiscal year that we would otherwise generate at the current taxation rates.
All right, we'll go Joanne, and then Ezekiel has a comment.
I was just going to answer Mary Zeeb's question. And yes, those numbers are as of November 30th with those modifications.
Great. Ezekiel?
Yes, thank you for that. So just wanted to clarify that these reductions in cannabis revenue will mean a corresponding reduction to the department's distribution of discretionary revenue, and we will use the existing formulas that are in place right now based on the current direction that we have received.
Thank
if
you.
this motion actually passes as it stands right now.
Great, thank you. And Ms. Zeeb?
Sorry, legacy.
Legacy hand. All right, very good. I think we have exhausted discussion at this point. So let's go ahead and take a roll call vote. And the motion was from Alejo, seconded by Lopez, with some friendly amendments.
Supervisor Alejo?
Aye.
Supervisor Phillips?
Aye.
Supervisor Lopez.
Aye.
Supervisor Adams.
Aye.
And Chair Supervisor Root Askew.
Aye. Motion carries. And we will have this return with the formal code changes in January. And I think our first meeting in January is January 11th.
Correct.
So, however quickly we can get that.
Is it possible that I just make a comment?
Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to remind the board that SB 160 is in place and we are on track with the land use permits, but we still have 86 to process in the next 2 years. So when the board is considering staffing reductions, I hope that they will take that into consideration. And to just to comment from Supervisor Alejo's point from the press conference yesterday, the enforcement unit that has 5.5 FTEs, they have made great strides in eradicating over 50 tons of unlicensed cannabis since 2019. The compliance inspection staff, that stands at 6.25. And then just my last comment is on the California Cannabis Authority data. To remain in good standing, every operator must submit their information. And last month, we did have some operators that were not submitting. And so letters have gone out from the Treasurer Tax Collector's Office and again from the Programs Office to remind them that they must submit that data because that data is critical for you to make informed decisions. And so we're working with all the operators who did receive those letters to kind of figure out the reason why maybe it was a system error. But we will continue that effort working with the Treasurer Tax Collector's Office and CCA. Thank you.
Great. And thank you again for the work on this. All right, next up, we have item number 6, which I think is the reason we called this special meeting so that we could make a final decision on our redistricting maps before tomorrow's deadline. So item number 6 is to adopt a resolution setting forth the 2021 County of Monterey supervisorial district boundaries. And I am going to introduce Rosemary Soto for a brief introduction of this item.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the board. Thank you for holding this special meeting for our final adoption of the 2021 redistricting map plan. I would like to start off by expressing my appreciation to your board and to my superiors, Nick Chulos, Charles McKee, and Les Gerard for their support in this project. It has been a great learning experience, and I appreciate the opportunity to have served my community in this particular capacity. I also want to acknowledge the many colleagues and partners in this effort. Here is a list of all of those who had a hand in ensuring that this process was one that really acknowledged and included and encouraged community participation, community engagement, and also just allowed for us to do this work as smoothly as possible. And so here's a list of all of those who were involved. There were many parts to this process, and I'm very, very grateful for the collaboration and the partnership across departments and across the community and beyond. So with that, I just want to go ahead and introduce our consultants with Lapkoff and Gobele Demographic Research. Shelley Lapkoff is going to go over just a recap of what you heard and what you received from our Advisory Redistricting Commission, who came to this point of really reviewing all of the maps that were submitted by the public, by commissioners as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Shelley, who is going to go over a review of those final map plans that are coming before you for a decision.
Thank you, Rosemary. We have 3 plans to review. The 3 plans that came before the commission, from the commission. And also those were the 3 plans that the Board of Supervisors said they wanted to consider for adoption. Next page, please. And here are the 3 plans, Plan 1.1, Plan B, and Plan N. And to remind you, this is your current, these are some demographic information about your current supervisorial districts. You have a planned deviation of 7.9%, which is actually legally acceptable. But as you can see in here, District 2 has much more population than the other 4 supervisorial districts, and that's what prompted the review of new plans. Next slide, please. So these 3 plans, they're quite different from one another. Plan 1.1 removes the most population from District 2, in part to account for potential future housing growth, give a nod to that. It corrects 3 irregular boundaries in Salinas while it removed the population from District 2, and it moves the most population into District 4, which was controversial from District 4 residents, public testimony that we heard. Plan B makes the fewest changes of the 3 plans, and it corrects 2 of the irregular boundaries in Salinas. Plan N moves the most people from one district to another, and that's primarily because of the large change in population between District 1 and District 3. It almost completely changes the part of Salinas that goes into District 3. It moves the same population into District 4 as does Plan B. Next slide, please. And just to further enumerate how many people moved or changed districts, how much change is there in the resident population. 1.1 moves a total of 14,720 people. Plan B moves the least at 5,958, and Plan N moves the most people at 25,393. And this, one of the reasons we look at that is because some people will now have to wait 6 years to vote for a supervisor, while others may be able to vote in just 2 years. So that is one concern, is that when you move a lot of people, sometimes you make people wait to vote for their supervisor. One of the things that's interesting, I think, in this process, because this is our 4th time doing this, is there's really no difference in the race ethnic makeup of the districts. So that in this redistricting period is not the key driver in the choice of plans. I think that's pretty much the first time that's happened. Next slide. So here is, and we're going to focus on Salinas because that's where the changes are in these 3 plans. It's not in the other parts of the county. So here's your current plan, just to remind you, District 1, what it looks like. And all 3 plans are going to make District 1 a little more compact. Right now, it does follow the city limits of Salinas in the southeast, but all the plans sort of cut that off, as you'll see. Next slide. Here's Plan 1.1 on the left. You can see the overall shape of the district, and you can see in the right the areas that changed. And I said that it eliminated 3 awkward or irregular boundaries. And so you can see that on the right in the top, East Veranda Road becomes the boundary line between Districts 1 and 2. In the central west area, it's much more regular at, just goes down North Davis Street and Market, and that becomes the boundary line. And also moving population from District 1 to District 4, it uses the railroad line as the dividing line. So these are more regular boundaries, more identifiable boundaries than under the current plan. It also moves a fair amount of population from District 1 to District 3, all to balance the population. Next slide. Plan B is a subset of Plan 1.1. It takes a couple of the changes. So you see in it takes the East Veranda Road boundary, so it moves some of District 2 into District 1 to help relieve the District 2 overpopulation. It moves a little bit of population from District 1 to District 4, 802 people. And then it moves a small amount, but a large geographic area, but a small population of District 1 into District 3. Next slide. And then here's Plan N. I think the key feature of this plan is that it reverses or changes the population that goes into District 3 from Salinas. So right now, the area that's 9,282 people, it's south of Williams Road, all that area goes into Salinas, into District 1 now. And instead, the area south of East Market Street and bounded by the railroad track in the bottom and South Sanborn Road, that ends up going into District 3. So it's a switch of that population going from between District 1 and District 3. They also move population. This plan moves 6,406 people from District 2 to District 1. So District 2 has a much lower population now. It's actually a little less than the average supervisorial district. And it moves a small amount of population from District 1 to District 4, the same 802 people. So that's Plan N. And we have data tables, which I won't go over unless you are interested. So those are the 3 plans under consideration now.
Great. So thank you, Shelley. So at this point, we are, we do have a deadline, a legal deadline to adopt the map, and that is tomorrow, December 15th. Our next steps is once your board has adopted one of the final maps that have been presented before you, we will then move forward with implementing those changes. So at this point, this concludes our presentation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Rosemary Soto. And I just want to, before we bring it back to the board for discussion, I want to just thank each and every one of the commissioners who spent so much time. I'm not sure if anyone knew exactly how significant of a time commitment this was when they sent in their applications. But the number of meetings, the level of discussion, the back and forth, the community outreach, the community meetings, the joint board meetings, we really appreciate your role in all of this. And I've been really clear from the beginning. I really would have preferred that you had the ultimate decision here to make. So I'm taking your recommendations from our previous board meeting and the communication that's come to the board very significantly. I think that the lines of districts shouldn't be drawn by those who are serving in those districts. But given that that's the way that this process works here today, I really do look forward to the recommendations that have come from the commission. And I do, before we continue on, I just wanted to see, Chair Parker, did you want to speak any final comments on behalf of the commission before we go into our deliberations?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank the commissioners. We had very good discussions, a lot of participation. And so I think the maps that you have before you are a good representation of the options. And it's just a different way of looking at trying to achieve the equal, as close to equal population in the districts as possible, and taking into account communities of interest and the comments of the public. So thanks again to all the commissioners. And I and probably the other commissioners who are present are eager to hear your discussion and to learn what your final decision will be.
Great, thank you. And we will have one final opportunity for public comment before we take a final action. But with that, I'll open it up to my colleagues on the board. I will start with Supervisor Alejo.
Thank you, since it's my first meeting here in quite some time. So
welcome back.
And I wanted to just as our last meeting on this topic, to first of all thank all the commissioners, as our chair just eloquently stated. I think we recognize that we called upon your service for since July. A lot had changed. We had a very challenging census before that, and you stepped up to the challenge. And so I think all of us are grateful for your service to Monterey County and being a voice for our local residents. So I appreciate that. I think we're at a point where we know it's up to these last 3 final maps. And I want to thank my 3 commissioners from District 1, Natalia, Ernesto, and Sergio, and also our alternate, Vanessa Robinson. Thank you for representing and being a voice for residents of District 1. It's very much appreciated. I did want to just start off with one that I strongest support, and that's Plan B, because I think we heard from our community. And even before I say that, a lot of these, I think all 3 maps bring in the most residents to my district. So I'm speaking from the most impacted district. And I want to say from the get-go, I'm very proud to represent every single resident that they may propose that was in my district, or maybe a new resident of my district. I want to tell you that I will advocate for you. I will be your champion. I will be proud to represent your neighborhood, your family, and your part of the Salinas, however it ends up tonight. But I think there was some other goals we heard from the district, and I know East Salinas has often been a neglected part of our city, a neglected part of Monterey County. And we try to put forward a map that really helps unify an important part of the Alisal around Alisal High School. I think we achieved that and bringing those neighborhoods better together, including one portion that's adjacent, that's currently in Supervisor Phillips's district, and we thought that area made the most sense to bring into one unified supervisorial district. So I hope that we can support that, and the other changes are mostly between districts 1 and 3, currently represented by Supervisor Lopez, and both of us have expressed support for these changes that only occur between both of our districts. My second favorite district is would be Plan B, because it has the least change from one district to another. It does bring in 4,774 residents from District 2 into my district. Again, I will be proud to represent any new residents in my district. I will be your most zealous advocate and champion. But the one I think is most troublesome is 1.1, because that I don't want to repeat all the comments that I already put on record last time, but the effort to try to remove as many Salinas residents from District 2 and put them into my district, I think it was an unfortunate tone. This map would shift over 8,013 residents from District 2 into my district. And again, I would say every supervisor should be proud to represent every Salinas single resident. We have 4 supervisors that represent Salinas. So each of us should be as equally as proud to be their champion and not support maps that try to draw as many of our city residents out of one particular district. That's, for me, honestly, it's the most offensive one. And I think we all have a responsibility to represent our portion of our city residents in Salinas. And I hope that this one would not be favored by my colleagues for those very reasons. If you look at the numbers themselves, I think it speaks volumes. And not only that, the numbers, but the many comments that were made about trying to remove as many of Salinas residents out of District 2, I think was unfortunate. But we have a chance to try to balance things out here on this final vote. And that would be, I would just put out Plan N as my number 1, Plan B as my number 2, and I do not favor 1.1 whatsoever. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Alejo. Let's see here. We'll go next to Supervisor Lopez.
Yeah, I still favor N. I look forward to hearing that. I hope we'll take more public comment today. I know there's a few folks who wanted to share opinions with us, but I continue to support N. Obviously, it was a unanimous map amongst my commissioners, and I want to thank them for the work that they did in these difficult times in terms of getting together via Zoom, finding that time to make recommendations that support our community and uplift the uniting of communities that have been seeking that. And so I'm still supportive of N, but look forward to any additional public comment we might receive today. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other Board of Supervisors care to comment before we go to public comment? Seeing none yet. Oh, Supervisor Phillips.
Yeah, I too want to thank our commissioner. In fact, I just signed a letter of appreciation that going out to all of them. But to me, looking at this, and my district was the one that we had to make the reason I had to make the changes. But my commissioners were totally in favor of 1.1. And frankly, I think that makes the greatest sense. And the reason for that was that as was mentioned by Supervisor Aleo last time we were here, I'm the most rural district. District 2 is the most rural. We don't have any city except for North Salinas. And most of the issues that I'm dealing with my constituents are dealing with the things in the rural areas. If something comes up in the city area, they're going to the city to deal with the issues, especially to me, especially the district that there, the other side of Davis on Rossi and Market. I mean, my district goes all the way down to the train station, and which I really don't have much dealing with. So I think 1.1 was the one that was looked at by the professional people looking at it, a recommendation before the special interest got involved. So that's my strongly feel that 1.1. If we had to reach a moderation, my second choice would be B. And I have a strong opposition to N, where we're moving 25,000 residents around places. It just makes no sense. And you see the gerrymandering with a golf club down at the end of it. So that's the one I really oppose. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Phillips. Supervisor Lopez, did you want to comment again, or was that a legacy hand?
Legacy hand. My apologies.
All right, let's take it out to public comment. We welcome public comment on the redistricting maps. Please raise your hand if you would like to speak, and we will call on you one at a time. We do have 1:30 on the clock, and I just ask that everyone kindly watch the time so that I don't have to interrupt you. But we do welcome your feedback, your comments, and your testimony today. And we'll start in chambers. Come on up. Thank you for being here.
Welcome, Madam Chair. Steve McDougall. I'm a redistricting commissioner from District 3. I just want to reiterate that all of us commissioners support N as in November. Reason being is, one, it is clear that there's a community of interest south of Williams Road that wants to be included in Area 1. That is clear. That's the only map that does that. Also, this isn't gerrymandering. This isn't political. This is honoring a community of interest that was loud and clear. That's all there is to it. Salinas has a large population, and the 4 areas have to take some of Salinas. That's not a burden per se. That's just the reality. Area 3 still takes a share of Salinas, pretty much the same as the community of interest south of Williams Road. So I would ask that the Board of Supervisors support map N as in November. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And thank you for joining us in person today and for all of your work on the commission. We'll take it to any other in chambers public comment today. Seeing none, we'll take it to Zoom. So if you're with us on Zoom, could you please raise your hand so that I can call on you? We'll start with Ernesto. Thank you for joining us.
Unmute. Yeah, can you hear me?
We've got you now. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, thank you. Yes, This is Ernesto Gonzalez. I was one of the commissioners representing District 1. And I was one of the persons that created, sorry. I was one of the persons that helped develop that particular district, that particular map. And part of it, I started with the premises as to what a lot of the community members from District 4 and District 5 had mentioned. And so I basically kept Districts 4 and 5 the same. So District 4 and 5 in Plan N are pretty much the same. It doesn't change anything. And so that was one of the considerations that I had when I created, taking that into account. Then after I heard the Board of Supervisors at that meeting a couple of weeks back, then I created that map kind of looking at what the comments of the supervisors were. And so that was the outcome on those particular comments. So that is why I had, asked the communities especially the minority communities in District 4 and 5 to support, and because that's what the District 2 and District 3 supervisors and community wanted. So we were supporting 4 and 5. So that's one of the requests. Hopefully we can get and pass because it doesn't change anything in District 4 and 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernesto, for your comments today. We have Steve Tansey.
Thank you. I'm sorry, can you hear me?
We can. Thank you for joining us, Steve.
Sorry, I wasn't sure I was being heard. Thank you. My name's Steve Tansey. I'm a commissioner for District 2. And I, like all the other commissioners, spent a lot of time poring over these numbers. There is some considerations that I know weren't presented here today. The fact that map N has a CVAP of 49%. The demographers told us from the beginning, you can't have a CVAP under 50% or you're open to county for liability and possibility of being sued. That is a problem. There's also the fact that it's moving 25,000 people, and it's going to take a great number of those people and move their ability to vote for a supervisor out to 6 years. This is only a 10-year map. So they won't even be able to vote for their supervisors for 6 of those years. So that seems very unfair. Again, I'd like to express my support for 1.1. I think it's fair. It was drawn by the demographers with no political agenda in mind, just what was fair, most fair for the community at large. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments today, Steve, and for your service on the commission. Are there any other public comment today? Last call for public comment. All right, we're going to go to Margie, followed by the Democratic Socialists.
Hi, yeah, this is Margie Kay. I'm from North County District 2, and I'd like to echo what Steve Tansey said. That's all I have to say. Thank you. So 1.1, please.
Thank you. Next up, Democratic Socialists.
Good afternoon. My name is Carla Lobo, co-chair of the Central Coast Democratic Socialists of America for the Monterey County and San Benito. I want to highlight important facts that have been stated throughout this process. Not all commissioners had the opportunity to vote on the final maps during the last commissioners meeting. Since then, other commissioners have come forward to voice their desire to change their votes due to inaccurate information provided to the commissioners and the public as of 12/7/2021. Community members recommend this board take a revote for accuracy from our appointed commissioners on their preferred map choice. Lastly, I want to reiterate what the demographer Lamkoff stated about District 4's communities of interest concerns. Residents in District 4 and communities of interest, primarily the African American and as well as the Asian populations in Seaside and Marina, were concerned that there has been so much out-migration of their communities in their electoral influence has diminished over the time. And by putting more non-African American, Black, and Asians into District 4 will further dilute their influence. The community of interest in District 4 have voiced their concerns clearly. And as demographer Lamcock stated, these communities only desire not to be further diluted. Let's not divisively make this a race issue. We endorse Plan B as voiced by the communities of interest and most marginalized communities. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you for your comments, Carla. And Ernesto, we have your hand raised again. I'm not sure if we cleared that, but we do only do one public comment per round. Do we have any additional, this is our final call for public comment on redistricting maps. I'm not seeing any other public comment come in. Okay, we're going to close public comment and bring it back to the Board of Supervisors for discussion and action. It looks like we've sort of got recommendations across the board between the three maps. And I'm not exactly sure what the best strategy is for us to come to agreement as to which map to proceed with. I'm just going to ask for clarification from County Council. Is this a 4/5 or a simple majority requirement?
This is a simple majority vote, Chair. And with three maps, there's the potential for a motion to be made and it does not get approved. And then you'd have another motion for a different map that also doesn't get approved. I might recommend that the board agree to a process of elimination, that if there's a vote and one of the maps only gets one vote, for example, that one gets dropped out of consideration so that you're down to two. And that way you might get to a simple majority vote. You don't want to be in a situation where you're going round and round without any decision because you need 3 votes to adopt the map. Now, your first motion might get 3 votes to adopt the map, but in case it doesn't, I just offer that suggestion.
And then the final question that I have for council would be, I know we published 3 maps, but the current plan is also still listed here. Is that also an option for consideration?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
The current plan, the existing, the status quo?
No change.
No
The
change.
status quo is not one of the maps.
Is
that
not
you're
one
to
of the maps we
consider. You
published.
have to
Okay.
choose one of the 3
One of the
maps
3.
that are before you today.
Got it. Very good. Okay. Just want to make sure we're all operating off of the same set of understandings. So I really appreciate the public comment, and I've taking into consideration the feedback from the District 4 commissioners who I'm hearing were supportive of Map B. That sounds like District 2 commissioners are very supportive of Map 1.1. We have support for Map N from District 1 and 3. And I believe I heard support at our last joint meeting from District 5 commissioners for Map B. So it really does leave us kind of scattered throughout. The considerations for me, I think I have heard from the community that we want to maintain sort of this communities of interest, especially in communities where dilution of voice has happened over time for the African-American community. And I know we also heard in the process through rewatching some of the tapes from our Asian American community. So I'd be inclined to move to disrupt those communities as much as possible. I understand, and I've heard loud and clearly from folks that Map N would really serve to unify communities that have long desired unification. And the only concern that I have on that is that we end up with 15,260 individuals who end up being moved around in that process, who go for 6 years without the ability to vote for a supervisor. And then once we redistrict again 10 years from now, potentially additional movement that could result in another 6 years of not being able to vote for their supervisor. So that does give me pause. I think that's the only thing on Map N that does give me pause and reason to just to think through, is that the right thing? But in the conversations that I've had with community members and that I'm hearing from those commissioners, that isn't reason enough to not make that change. So I will maybe we'll bounce it back around for one more round of discussion, but I'm inclined to lend support to Map N if we can have assurance. We're looking for assurance in that issue of 6 years being in between the ability to vote for a supervisor. I do think we have to listen to the community, and I would have loved to have our unanimous recommendation from our commission about which map to proceed with. But in the absence of that, that's kind of where I'm thinking at this point. Supervisor Adams?
So please, Wendy, could you explain what you just said about the concern that I have seriously as well about a group of people being disenfranchised from voting for 6 years? I really have a difficult time with that. What can you tell me what you had just said about that you felt like there was a way around that?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a way around that. It's just, I think the reality of the way that the movement of people. So in map N, you have a movement of about 6,400 people from District 2 to District 1, meaning that they wouldn't be able to vote in the District 2 race that's coming up. So it's been 4 years since they last voted. There'll be an additional 2 years. That puts them at 6 years.
Exactly.
You have an additional 8,800 people who are moving from District 1. I'm sorry, you have an additional 9,000 people who are moving from District 3 into District, mixing up these districts. Anyway, I'm looking at the chart on page 7. And when you add up the two groups that are the election year cycle would be 6 years between elections, it gets me to a total of, sorry, it's 6,406 plus 9,282.
So it's 25,000 people, which is, a sizable amount in a county of what, 430,000. So that really worries me. Having looked at the different permutations, I'm more inclined to go with 1.1 than I am with B. So, but I want to see us come to closure on this in some ways. And as everybody knows, it doesn't have a tremendous impact on my own district, but I'm not looking at this as by district. I'm looking at it for the entire county, which is why I'm troubled by having people not being able to vote for 6 years.
I'm sorry. Let's go Supervisor Lopez, and then we'll come back to Supervisor Alejo.
Yeah, I want to say I appreciate both of you raising those concerns. It's not something that I've ignored or haven't thought about. But when I think about the importance of unifying communities of interest, to me that outweighs. Specifically, I look at the numbers that lie ahead. Obviously, there's people who just voted or recently voted, but even though there was not an election in District 1, who will now be voting this coming year. In 3, and then that would leave 2.5 years until they're up and voting for District 1 in that switch from District 3 to 1. A little confusing, I know, a lot of numbers there. But at the end of the day, I think what's important is keeping communities of interest together. And we were told not to consider future growth. Right. But then it was funny because then the demographer turned around and said, and we looked at future growth potential in the North County district. And I see future growth in my district in the 3rd. And so we're really being asked right now, are you going to make this change now or 10 years from now? It's not like the lines themselves are going to become self-balancing in 10 years. What's important to this community is being kept together. And a lot of the folks in that community, they're tied into East Salinas. And so to say no, but because we're afraid you might not get to vote for those 2 additional years, we're gonna leave you in a place where you might not feel that you belong. I'd rather fix it now. I'd rather make that change today, because in 10 years the discussion will be slightly different, but the numbers that we face will be significantly different. And at the end of the day, it's about keeping communities together as soon as possible, putting them together as soon as possible, and keeping them there to the best of our abilities. And this is going to be the only option for a decade. And so I think that's what outweighed the different considerations for me in those movements and leaves me in clear support of N. But I just wanted to share that, and thank you for raising that perspective.
Thank you, Supervisor Alejo.
Madam Chair, I want to echo what Supervisor Lopez said. He said it very well, very eloquently. And I think in map N, you have 2 supervisors. Unlike many of the other conversations about not putting people in this, you have 2 supervisors who are excited about representing these residents and these changes just between our districts that help unify neighborhoods and not continue to keep a dividing line of Williams Road from one side of a neighborhood, of community, and not include the other side in the same supervisorial district. So we heard those concerns. We both support this map that was put forward by our commissioners to reflect addressing those needs and trying to right those historic wrongs in the LSL. And and then it doesn't make any much changes in everyone else. But in this map also, it does bring in that piece of District 2 into that make the most sense, because it helps also unify that portion of the LSL because it's right adjacent to it. And so we never, I think my commissioners and us as supervisors never came and approached it that we didn't want to represent any residents. We didn't ask to not put more people into our district, even though this map brings in the most to my district. It was never that the urban part of Salinas should not be in my district. It was never that tone. It was about what made sense to do right for the LSL, and at the same time not have so much impacts in the other districts. And it even achieved some of what D2 wanted, which was bring in some of those D2 residents into District 1, but we brought in the piece that made the most sense to unify the LSL. So I think our approach has always been equitable. It's always been respectful to our residents. It was always approaching that we wanted to represent each of the residents and neighborhoods that we have brought into this map. And I think Supervisor Lopez and I are asking for the support, because I think this is the just thing to do. And it's really hearing from what the residents of East Salinas have asked for. Otherwise, we continue to keep that dividing line there for another decade. And so people want to talk about disenfranchisement. Well, you can't just use that as an excuse to keep a dividing line in the neighborhood when they're asking for their portion of the city to be better unified. And I think our map helps achieve that.
Supervisor Lopez, you've got a hand up.
Sorry, I'm bad at this today. Legacy.
All right. So if I'm hearing everyone right, just to help us get towards as much consensus as possible, we have, did I hear correctly? So Supervisor, so District 1, the preference would be map N, the second preference would be B, and then the final choice would be map 1.1. No 1.1. So you've got a hard no on 1.1. We've got a hard no on map N from District 2. I think at this point, looking at all of the numbers and to facilitate us moving through this meeting, I'm going to make a motion to proceed with map N.
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Oh, you beat me.
We have a second from Supervisor Lopez. Any further discussion? Supervisor Phillips.
Yeah, that's the one I can't support. So I'd like to see us be unanimous, but I could have supported B, but I cannot support N. Thank you.
Thank you for that explanation. Or is that a substitute motion, or are you just going on record?
No.
Okay. All right.
I can count.
Okay. And we have a county council.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, members of the board. I would ask that the motion be to adopt the resolution in front of you with map N as the approved map.
All right. The motion would be to adopt the resolution in front of us with map N as the approved map. Any further conversation before we take a roll call vote? All right, we'll take a roll call vote. Thank you.
Supervisor Lejo.
Aye.
Supervisor Phillips.
No.
Supervisor Lopez.
Aye.
Supervisor Adams.
Aye.
And Chair Supervisor Root Askew.
Aye. Thank you. And once again, I just want to thank all of our commissioners for the just incredible work and time that you put into this conversation, these discussions. We really value and appreciate your commitment to ensuring that everyone in Monterey County has the opportunity to vote, and that their vote is represented by the community that they live in, or in the community that they live in. Thank you again.
And Madam Chair, if I could just echo those comments, I really do appreciate the work of the commissioners. They really, they weren't paid to do it, and they stepped up to do it, volunteered. Really was a great effort. I also want to thank Rosemary Soto for stepping up. It wasn't, this was something new to her. It's not something she's ever done before. So she had to step in there and put it all together and handle it all. And great work by her. We also had some other stars step up. Vanessa really stepped up, and Annie stepped up, and they really have done some great work here for the county, and I do appreciate everything that they did. Thank you.
Agreed. On behalf of my colleagues, I think I can say thank you all
Definitely.
deeply. All right, with that, we are going to move on. We have more business tonight. Before we're out of here, we're going to move on to item number 8. We already handled item number 7. Item number 8 is to consider a response by the clerk of the Board of Supervisors office to board referral 2020.27, seeking the need for simultaneous Spanish interpretation services for live Zoom board meetings and Spanish translation services of the recorded minutes of the Board of Supervisors meetings. And I'll pass the microphone over to our incredible clerk of the board, Valerie Ralph.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So good evening. I am Valerie Ralph, Clerk of the Board of Supervisors, and I will be providing a verbal presentation on item number 8. Joining me is Julian Lorenzana, Board Clerk, to the Clerk of the Board's office, who will pull up the options for the board to consider when we reach that part of the presentation. The Clerk of the Board's office was given Board Referral 2020.27 to support access to live interpretation and translation of the Board of Supervisors meetings by recording and uploading the Spanish videos and translating and uploading the Spanish minutes of the meetings. This referral was submitted by Supervisor Luis A. Alejo and Supervisor Chris Lopez and referred to the Clerk of the Board's office in December 2020. Prior to this referral, the Clerk of the Board's office had been discussing a pilot of these services, and this pilot was put into place from December 2020 through April 2021 from salary savings in the Clerk of the Board's budget, equaling approximately $28,000 for live Spanish Zoom meetings only. During the 4 to 5 month pilot program, it was noted these services were not utilized as no feedback was received that the services were interrupted or were no longer available due to the following reasons: technical difficulties, or only one simultaneous interpreter was available and the need for a morning and afternoon break was taken when no official break was had due to full agendas, and or if the meeting went past 5 p.m. and the simultaneous interpreter services were booked until 5 p.m. where the interpreters had to leave the meeting. Currently, salary savings are no longer available and the Clerk of the Board's office does not have the budget for these services in order to implement. The office would need to seek a budget augmentation, which would need to be considered for future budget requests. Juan Rodriguez, Civil Rights Officer, was also consulted on this board referral for insight regarding language services. If implemented, the new live simultaneous Spanish interpretation services via Zoom will require 2 simultaneous certified Spanish interpreters due to interpreter fatigue after 45 minutes when interpreting. This will ensure quality of interpretation for community members and would consist of 38 regular meetings, not including any special meetings, approximately 4 hours on average for about 152 hours in meeting time. $85 per hour per simultaneous Spanish interpreter, which would equal about $25,840. In addition, if implemented, the board's meeting minutes translated into Spanish by an outside certified vendor would be, on average, minutes consist of 5,000 words. Mid-range translation costs are 15 cents per word. That would be $750 per minute times 38 regular meetings, not including any special meetings, and that would equal about $28,500. To date, there have been no requests to have the minutes translated into Spanish. Both services, if implemented, would equal $54,340. Julian will now share his screen to reflect the options for the board to consider. Thank you, Julian. So A, implement comprehensive services, which would include interpreters certified for live meetings and translation certified for minutes. B, implement partial services, which would be interpreter certified for live meetings only, or other implementation options, which would be A, interpreter certified for live meetings and or translation of the minutes through Google Translation, which is a free service. B, interpreter certified by request from a member of the public for live meetings and or translation certified by request from a member of the public. Or implement another pilot program for 3 months. During this pilot program, measure the number of requests for Spanish-speaking interpreters, requests for translation of minutes, monitor the attendance at public meetings in Spanish on the Spanish channel, and report back to the Board of Supervisors for further consideration and or take no change at this time. This concludes the presentation. Thank you for your time, and we are open for any questions.
Thank you, Valerie, and thank you, Jillian, for the information and the presentation. I'm going to pass it back to the makers of the motion, and I believe Supervisor Lopez, as chair of the board last year, really dove into the recognition that we needed to have language services available. Supervisor Lopez, would you like to chime in first?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, just, looking at the options, I struggle with the abilities of the financial restrictions. I know I've continued to push at the state level for specifically CDPH to do more in terms of their translation services. And we've had recent hiccups in our own capacity. For me, at this point, I think C is something that I would, under other options, is something that I would support to understand the need. But more importantly, the letter B to me as a permanent policy, as a thought about as we go through setting our agendas, we need to reflect on those questions about, are these items going to draw the need specifically when we have major changes in public health, or which was the trigger for this particular referral, or is it an item like something around like Moro Coho, which could draw people that need that service. So maybe having a checkbox in terms of the clerk process to ask ourselves that question of, is this a likely item to draw additional need as well? So I would like to see C with as a pilot, but then that be implementation permanently as in terms of the recommendations made today to find out with good data what the need is in our community.
Thank you, Supervisor Lopez. Supervisor Alejo, it was a joint referral. Do you want to chime in as well?
Yeah, I think it was well said. And first of all, it's how critical our interpretation services are. And I'm glad our interpreter is here tonight, and you always do a good job for us. But you're not always, there's new people that come in sometimes when you can't be available, and we need to have some consistency, and I also made some recommendations that for any interpreter, we should have some protocols, so any new person that comes in, they can know what to expect from the board. They could check in with whoever's chairing the meetings, so that it makes it easy for them before they come to understand what to do when they get here. And I think it would be helpful to them to kind of have some consistency, because the chairs change every year. So I like these options. I would encourage our clerk's office to come and with that budget augmentation request, because it's so important for our community. And obviously, at times we're going to get requests for other types of languages. And I think we will handle those as those requests come in, as Spanish is not the only need. Like it's not only language, other languages, but even sign language. I mean, there's other requests that we legally are obligated to provide to members of our community. So I think with that recognition, I think some of the translation, I don't know if it needs to be certified or it could be done on the Google. I think our staff, maybe in your office, could do that, and that could bring some savings to offset some of the cost. When you really need the money, I think for the interpretation side, in terms of the professional and the quality of service to the community. The minutes, obviously, it could be done later. It could be easily translated. Google is pretty good. I use it all the time because my Spanish ain't that great either, and it helps me look and sound better on paper. Thank you.
Supervisor Phillips.
Oh, Spanish has got to be better than mine, but I tend to agree. Let's take a look at the pilot project and see how much really is needed. And I agree with Supervisor Lopez. There may be times when we would need the ready-go interpreter, but I know from running a court for a lot of years, boy, it's taxing and time-consuming and expensive to have interpreters. 45 minutes, and it's intense. 45 minutes and 45 minutes and 45 minutes, and sometimes we had to have an interpreter for every defendant and the witness, and we had 4 or 5 interpreters in a courtroom at a time, and it just kills your budget. And I question how many times it really is needed that can't be handled in a different way. So I tend to agree. Let's take a look at the pilot project and see on an as needed basis. And I may have to bail here pretty quick. I have to deal with my granddaughter that needs to arrive from basketball practice. So.
We always support family first, Supervisor Fellows. Thank you for your comments. I'll chime in. I think I do feel pretty strongly that the business of this board is accessible to everyone in our community. And we know, the data tells us, regardless of who shows up here or who we know is looking to access our minutes, we know that a large proportion of our community does rely on Spanish translation. I think we also know that some of those individuals are the least likely to ask for accommodations to be able to understand the business that's happening in these chambers or in any of our committee meetings. So I am committed to investing the resources that we need, the funds. I would encourage you to come back with a budget augmentation request to have the funding for language translation services, both live, simultaneous in our meetings. I think that our committee meetings, we should have that same, commitment. But can support the pilot program for another 3 months. I think some of the questions that I have, though, in terms of the number of requests for Spanish-speaking interpreters, I think just in the absence of some sort of promotion or letting people know that this is available, that this is an option and how they can access it, I wouldn't expect that we'd have any change in the type of requests that come to us. So I know that going into next year, we did just make some very significant commitments to our communications team and staffing. We have 2 new full-time positions that will be coming on board. And I would hope that this is something that the communications team could help maybe draft up what that pilot program looks like and how we can communicate it back out into the public so that those who would most benefit actually are aware of how to engage with us. But I'm supportive of the budget request and would like to see us move forward with this. Any other comments from colleagues on the board? Otherwise, we'll open it up to public comment. This is item number 8 on our board agenda today. A simultaneous referral requesting resources for simultaneous Spanish interpretation services at our board meetings. Is there any public comment? We'll start with Cesar Lara.
Good evening, members of the Board of Supervisors. It's Cesar Lara from both the Labor Council and Milpa. I really want to thank the makers of the referral for bringing this up. As somebody that has advocated and have brought people to the community where we've had to translate some of your documents from English to Spanish, I think if the county is going to stand on their values of being transparent, open, and equitable to all communities, having your materials in Spanish is important. But understanding that we should study it a little bit more, I'd kind of recommend that we do a pilot, and especially during this budget season, that we make some of those meetings and everything accessible in Spanish with both not just translation, but also with the written materials in Spanish would be helpful to make sure that the county really stands up to what they stand for, which is open, transparent meetings, which means that you have to look at the community you represent, and Spanish language is important. So thank you.
Thank you for joining us and for your comments today, Cesar. Any other public comment? Otherwise, I'll close public comment and bring it back to the board for clear direction to our clerk.
Madam Chair, I would make my recommendation as stated earlier, motion.
All right, could you just restate that just so we're all very clear?
So we would do the pilot project option, moving forward for the 3 months, while also creating a formal checkbox in terms of the clerk's process to confirm on whether an item or not needs that special attention in the meantime as a permanent policy. And then there was one more piece, if we could get that slide back up.
Julie, thank you.
There we go. The translation of minutes through Google and having those posted as well, making that part of the formal policy moving forward. I think that captures it all.
All right, okay, perfect. And so we'll have a report back in, so 3 months would be March, April
And I'll
time
second,
period.
and maybe just as a friendly amendment to create that protocol for interpreters for our board meetings to just have some consistency and expectations. I think that could be a one pager easily developed by our clerk of the board.
Accepted, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll take a roll call vote.
So one quick question.
Yep, we'll take a question from Valerie.
Sorry, we don't have the funding now. I was going to ask for the augmentation, assuming it would be approved for the next fiscal year. So I won't be able to come back unless you want me to ask for the money now and then implement the pilot program.
And the amount that you need to implement the pilot program?
Yeah. We would need the money first before we can implement.
Well, let's, I think you can implement it. The money, I think you've got a commitment from the board. It's not a done deal. You should have money in your budget to do right now because you haven't spent all your budget for the fiscal year. And then we can come back and augment it as needed.
Okay, thank you.
And you have my support for that request when it shows up.
Thank you.
So, all right.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Awesome. All right, so with that, we'll take a roll call vote.
Supervisor Alejo?
Aye.
Supervisor Phillips?
Aye.
Supervisor Lopez?
Aye.
Supervisor Adams?
Aye.
And Chair Supervisor Root Askew.
Aye. Motion carries. And thank you again for all of the work that you guys have done this year. It's been quite an incredible year of ongoing hybrid meetings, special meetings, mixed meetings, joint meetings. You guys have been incredible and we couldn't have done it without you. Before we adjourn, I'd just like to ask our county council if there's a report out from closed session.
There's no reportable action from the closed session that was continued from last week. Thank you, Chair.
Great.
Madam Chair,
Yep.
can I do an adjourn in memory? I know it's last minute, but I
Yeah,
would.
hold on just a second. Chris, I wanted to see, were we able to get confirmation on the joint special meeting with the Housing Authority? Did we finalize a date and time?
We did not finalize a date and time. We're working with your offices.
Okay.
Your schedules are a little tough, as
Okay.
you can imagine.
Just wanted to see if we had that. I could announce it now.
Yeah, I don't have that yet.
Okay, very good. The bell will be posted online. So anyone who wanted to participate in that meeting, we welcome you to check online and we will have something up as soon as we confirm the date and time. All right. And sorry, Supervisor Lopez, I'm passing it back to you for our adjournment in memory.
Thank you. This weekend, we lost a very special person in South County. Hermie Robles Medina was only 33 years old. I grew up with Hermie. He lived a great life. He lived a full life, and he was a giver. He made sure that events in South County went off without a hitch. He was always there supporting our community events, especially the Citizen of the Year dinner. Many people met him at Scheid, where he was a host there at the tasting room. And Hermie was always supporting community events to the fullest. He gave of himself without asking anything in return. We all lived vicariously through him. He had just got back from Vegas, where he went to see, I think, 3 or 4 concerts and major events over the weekend. He was home for a couple of days and just, he passed away in his sleep. Saturday night, we found out Sunday morning. It's a major loss for our community. And we want to send our condolences to his mother, Alicia, who's a sweet woman who is taking this loss extremely hard. It's a loss for all of us. But thank you, board, for your indulgence in sharing these words.
Thank you. And with that, we are adjourned.
May he rest in peace.